تحياتنا لكم متابعينا من واتساب ميديا نتورك. شو الأخبار؟ ويب تي في قناة العرب في أمريكا. واليوم عرض مباشر أكيد وخاص للتكلم والحديث عن المناظرة الرئاسية الأولى في سنة 2020 ما بين الرئيس دونالد ترامب والمرشح الديمقراطي نائب الرئيس السابق جو بايدن. المناظرة تبدأ خلال دقائق في الساعة 9 مساء بتوقيت شرق الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية. أكيد نحن سوف نقوم بعرض هذه المناظرة بشكل مباشر على الفيسبوك بيج تبعنا وعلى اليوتيوب بيج تبعنا. بس حبينا قبل ما تبلش المناظرة هيك شوي 2 minutes نحكي مع الأستاذ الصحافي علي منصور من صحيفة صدى الوطن في أمريكا. خلينا دغري حتى نستفيد من الوقت. أستاذ علي، أهلا وسهلا فيك.
اهلا فيك. اهلا فيك.
حبينا نحن وياك علي قبل ما نبلش المناظرة نتحدث عن أهمية هذه المناظرة، كونها هيدي المرة الأولى إنه اللي بيتواجه فيها الرئيس دونالد ترامب والمرشح الديمقراطي جو بايدن. تفضل أستاذ علي، شو أهمية هيدي المناظرة الأولى، وشو يعني نحن ماذا ننتظر من هذه المناظرة الأولى أو تلك المناظرة الأولى؟ تفضل أستاذ علي.
الدرجة الأولى هذه أول مناظرة عادة بتكون بكل السباقات الرئاسية بتكون أهم مناظرة، لأنه بصير في مواجهة بين المرشحين بشكل مباشر. ولا طبعا نحن في حملة كانت كبيرة عم بيحاول يستغلها الرئيس ترامب على جو بايدن، بأنه هو ما بيعرف يحكي، بهذا المعنى أنه كان يقول له أنه سليبي جو، أنه ما بيعرف يتصرف، ما بيعرف يحكي. حتى إذا بتشوف الفيديوهات الترويجية والدعائية اللي عم بيحطوها، عم بيحاولوا يصوروا فيها جو بايدن أنه هو رئيس ضعيف جدا، ما بيعرف يحكي، ما عنده كاريزما. هلا هذا الشيء يمكن شوي كمان في شوي من المنطق انه ترامب من جو بايدن منه متحدث طلق مثل ترامب عنده هو ادرى بالمسرح، بيقدر يتحكم بالمسرح اكثر، بيقدر يحكي اكثر. فمن هون في خوف انه هذه المناظره يقدر يتقدم فيها ترامب بالنقاط على على بايدن، لانه طبعا كل قطاعات الراي بتقول انه في فرق لصالح بايدن، بس ولكن ممكن يستطيع الرئيس ترامب انه يعدل هذا الميزان لصالحه، بالرغم من انه كل المواضيع المطروحه هي بالدين ترامب ولصالح بالدين ترامب، وهي لصالح جو بايدن. من حيث اذا بنشوف ان هي ست مواضيع بده يتم تداولها هلا بهذه المناظره، اللي منها التاريخ جو بايدن السياسي، ومنها عمليه الضرائب، الملف الضريبي للرئيس ترامب، اللي هو هذا ملف محرج جدا، خاصه بعد ما سربت نيويورك تايمز اليوم امبارح موضوع انه منه دافع ضرائب خلال 10 سنين، والسنتين اللي ماضي دافع فيهم $750 كل سنه. فهذه مساله كثير بتاثر على الرئيس ترامب، بموضوع كمان بموضوع اعمال الشغب، وبموضوع التمييز العنصري، وبموضوع نزاهه العمليه الانتخابيه، في عده مواضيع. كل شيء طبعا في ظل تصريح الرئيس ترامب على انه لن يسلم السلطه الى جو بايدن. فهذه ما كيف بده يقدر يبررها الرئيس ترامب اذا تم سؤاله انه انت على اي اساس تنسف المؤسسات الديمقراطيه وما بتقبل بالمطالب الشعبيه اذا خسرت هذه الانتخابات، وبتقول انه في تزوير. فهذا مواضيع هون في
علي بشكل سريع لحتى اذا بتسمح لي، عشان رح يبلش الديبيت بعد شوي. اكيد نحن وياك رح نرجع ترجع انت تنضم لنا بعد المناظره لحتى نرجع نتكلم عن التحليل للمناظره ومن برايك يعني فاز بهذه المناظره اكيد. بس بشكل عام استاذ علي، مثل ما انت اشرت، هل تعتبر انه هذه المناظره الاولى بأهمية المناظرة لما بلومبرغ كان متقدم في كل الاستطلاعات الرأي، ولما عمل مناظرة خسر وانسحب؟ هل يا ترى هذه بنفس أهمية يعني المناظرة لما لبلومبرغ لبايدن اليوم لحتى يثبت حاله؟
لا، أنا ما بقول بهيدي الأهمية، لأنه ما بتصور أنها حتكون حاسمة وتحسم الموضوع الرئاسي انه لصالح مين، بس عم اقول انه بتاخذ اهميتها. نحن اول شيء امام مرشحين، ما في مجال للتراجع، ما حد حيقدر يتراجع. هي طبعا مهمه جدا، لانه مثل ما كنا عم نقول حسب الروايه اللي عم بيقدمها كان ترامب عن بايدن، انه انسان ما بيعرف يحكي، ما عنده كاريزما. هلا هون بتشوف انه هل قدران جو بايدن يثبت عكس هذا الكلام؟ هون ساعتها بنقدر نشوف انه لقدام شو ممكن نشوف بالمناظره الثانيه وبالمناظره الثالثه. طبعا نحن بدنا ننتظر. هلا بلش العد العكسي على طول بالانتخابات، بكل الانتخابات الرئاسيه بصير في العد العكسي من بعد بدء المناظرات. يعني من هون بتصير فيك تشوف استطلاعات الراي بتصير شوف الاجواء كيف عم تتحرك. هون بدي اشوف بدي لشيش لشغله مهمه، انه في شغله كثير لصالح ترامب، انه المودريت تقول المناظره هو من فوكس نيوز، وفوكس نيوز معروفه بانحيازها للحزب الجمهوري ولا الرئيس ترامب، فما بعرف هذا قديش حيأثر على سير المناظره. بس ولكن مثل ما اشرت، انه ترامب حيستفيد من كل الألاعيب المسرحيه ومن الفنون الخطابيه ومن الكاريزما التي يملكها، من القفز على الكلام ومن مخاطبه الجمهور بلغه شعبيه شعبويه.
علي، اخر سؤال قبل ما نتركك وبنرجع بدنا نضم لك. شو لازم يعمل ترامب ليربح بالمناظره اليوم، وشو لازم يعمل بايدن ليربح بالمناظره اليوم بشكل سريع علي، قبل ما نرجع ننتقل للمناظره؟
هذا سؤال كثير كبير طبعا. انه لا يقدر بدي يشير لشغله مهمه، حتى اللي بيربح بهذه المناظره مش معناتها انه هو ربح على الانتخابات. يعني جو مثل ما كنا عارفين انه في جو شعبي وفي انقسام حاد عمودي بامريكا بين حزب جمهوري وحزب ديمقراطي، بين طبعا نعره عنصريه كلنا بنسمع بهذا الموضوع يعني اللي عم نحكي فيه، بين المكسيك والاقليات والسود. في مشكله، في انقسام كثير كبير بامريكا. فحتى لو ربح ترامب هذه الانتخابات، هذه المناظره، مش معناتها انه هي مؤشر بس، ولكن مش بالضروره انه يحسم النتيجه سلف. بس بقدر اقول انه ترامب ليربح هيدي عفوا جو بايدن، هو ليك خليني اشير لشغله. بالجو العام ترامب ربحان، يعني هذه المناظره مين ما تساله بقول انه ترامب بده يربح. طبعا عم بقول لك المراقبين، لانه ترامب عنده خبره بهذا الموضوع. ففي يقول لك انه ليربح جو بايدن، هذه المناظره، بس مش بالضروره انه بده يربح الانتخابات. ليربح هذه المناظره بده يفرجي عن كاريزما حقيقيه، بده يفرجي عن اسئله منطقيه، بده يحرج دونالد ترامب بالزاويه بشكل منهجي وعلمي ومركز جدا جدا، ليقدر يحصد هذه النقاط بالمناظره. بس مثل ما قلت انه بتصور هذه المناظره هي مؤشر مهم جدا، بس ولكنها منا حاسمه بموضوع الانتخابات الرئاسيه. انا بطلت عم بسمعك هلا اذا عم تحكي معي.
علي، قادر تسمعني هلا؟
هلا عم بسمعك. ايه
قبل ما تتركنا علي، بنظرك يعني بشكل سريع، مين بيتوقعك، واكيد نرجع نسالك نفس السؤال بس نرجع تتضمننا بعد المناظره، مين بيتوقعك رح يربح هيدي المناظره اليوم؟
انا بتوقع انه ترامب حيقدر يربح هيدي المناظره، بس مثل ما قلت لك في عده ظروف بتلعب، بس بتوقع ترامب حيقدر يتقدم بهيدي المناظره على جو بايدن.
طيب، شكرا استاذ علي على وجودك معنا، الصحافي الاستاذ علي منصور من جريده صدى الوطن في امريكا. ان شاء الله رح تنضم لنا بعد انتهاء المناظره الرئاسيه الاولى ما بين الرئيس دونالد ترامب والمرشح الديمقراطي جو بايدن، لحتى نحلل المناظره ونتكلم ونفصل ماذا حصل خلال المناظره باللغه العربيه ومن الفائز الحقيقي في هذه المناظره. علي، انا بتشكرك. رح نروح ننتقل هلا مباشره لنتابع المناظره الرئاسيه الاولى ما بين الرئيس دونالد ترامب والمرشح الديمقراطي جو بايدن. فيكم اكيد تتابعوها من خلال واتساب ميديا نتورك على فيسبوك وعلى انستغرام، واكيد فيكم تعملوا لها مشاركه لهيدي المناظره. ان شاء الله انا كل شوي بطلع وبترجم شو عم بيحكوا، او بنكتب بالكومنتس كمان شو عم ينحكى لمتابعينا اللي بيحبوا على طول الترجمه العربيه. شكرا اجان استاذ علي، ومنتقي نحن وياك تقريبا بعد ساعه ونص لتحليل ما حصل خلال المناظره. ننتقل الى المناظره مباشره.
has been shared with the commission or the two candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic, which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all four debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed the candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you, can focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
How you doing, man? How are you? I'm well.
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight, why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, good in every way. In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time, even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you. Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this, and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is. And that say occurs when they vote for a United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court. And the justice, and I have nothing, I'm not opposed to the justice, she seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February. All right.
There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
During
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years.
The
And the
election's
100
already
million
started.
people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly
knows
going
that.
to
But-
socialist.
Go
You're
ahead.
going to
This
socialist medicine.
we're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number
Biden.
one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won, were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said,
But
and it's not what
that
your party has said.
That is simply
Your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party
is
wants to
simple.
go socialist
My
medicine
party is
and
me.
socialist
Right
healthcare.
now, I am
And
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act? And
Joe, you've had
pre-existing conditions?
308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me
I'm
about
happy
this.
to talk about
And if
this.
you were here,
Look,
it
here's
wouldn't
the
be
deal.
200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban,
All right, gentlemen,
Europe, which
no,
was heavily
Mr. President,
You would have
Mr.
been much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr.
Much
President,
later.
Mr.
You're
President,
talking about 2 million people.
You're not gonna be able
President,
to
as
shut
a
him up.
moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is all
You don't know it's on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is
you
it on the
said
ballot? It's not
you're-
on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you
And you
just be
don't
quiet
know
for a minute?
her view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't
don't
know her
know.
view.
Well, all right, let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time. So on health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask
Go
my
ahead.
question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well, I'll
I
give
got
you
rid of the individual
I'm
mandate.
going to give you an
Excuse me.
opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That is
big
not a
chunk of Obamacare.
comprehensive plan.
That is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst
I
part
didn't
of
ask
Obamacare.
Sir,
Chris,
you're
that was the
debating him,
worst
not
part of
me.
Obamacare.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular
Vice Pre-
aspect of
Mr.
Obamacare. I
President,
got rid of it.
I'd like you
And
to,
we will protect
Mr.
people
President,
with
I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer.
Go ahead.
You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare. And just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump healthcare plan?
Fine. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against big pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care.
What about
All of the
pre-existing
things that
conditions?
we've done,
He has not cut
insulin. I
healthcare.
give you an example, insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people because I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water. You want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs that what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because they pay just a tiny fraction.
As I say, this is open discussion.
No,
Let me
but
ask
this
you
is
about,
big.
you'll
This
be
is
happy,
big stuff,
sir. You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare. And
Yes.
the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
well, if
I'm
I can
sorry.
ask you the question, it will
Not what your
end
party says, by the way.
it will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would, Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option. Number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie Sanders, who's far left, on the manifesto,
when
we
you-
call it.
when
And that gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
Are you
I'm
saying
not
you
going to
didn't
listen
agree?
to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm
Not by
here
much.
standing facing you, old buddy.
Pocahontas would have left 2
I
days
tell
early.
you,
You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to
on
do is
Super
hurt.
Tuesday. You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to
With
make
what?
sure, because
With what?
here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agree-
want to
Hey,
make
Joe,
sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
He doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be
you know,
surprised.
you pick
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy,
Go
the
on,
wrong night at the
go.
wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
whole
manifesto.
idea-
Let
Now you're
him-
disavowing it.
There
Go ahead.
is no manifesto, number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two,
You just lost the left.
number two,
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan
folks,
that's absolutely
folks,
agreed
do you have
to,
any
and under that
idea
plan,
what
you have
this clown's
socialized,
doing?
They call it
Mr.
do you
Medicare,
have any
President.
do?
socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well, I
President,
tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care
Who is
because because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two, there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give them
Number
better
three.
health care at a
But-
much lower price
But-
because
and by the way,
Obamacare
he doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a
fixed
plan.
it to an extent.
He has never
Obamacare,
done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably don't.
gentlemen, you
Obamacare
realize
is no
if you're
good,
both
Joe.
speaking at the
It's no
same
good,
time,
and it's too expensive.
let the president go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better. And I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the
Not
individual
true.
mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed that. They shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or
Yeah.
badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people. Okay. I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
And I
known for.
just had a meeting with them. They said the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
I got you.
Premiums
I
are
got
too
it.
high, and
That's
it
what his
doesn't work.
people- that's what his
So
people
we
said.
we do want to get rid of it.
It's
Chris,
an
we
open
want to get rid of it.
I
and
understand
give
it, sir, but
something
I have
that's
to I
cheaper
have to
and
give
better.
you roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care.
Of course we do.
Please.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right.
He's
I have
against-
one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact, it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court.
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
Are you gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're a
to answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why would
because
you answer that
because
question?
the question
you want to put a lot
is-
of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is-
justice,
the
radical
question-
left.
Will you
Who is
shut
your
up, man?
listen? Who is on your list, Joe?
This
who's
is
on your
so
list?
Right, gentlemen,
This is,
I think
this
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the
unprecedented.
court.
That
We
is
have
so-
We're
no,
not
no.
going to give a list.
We have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
They sure do.
47 years you've
Jo-
done nothing. They understand.
Oh,
All right. The second subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully serious subject. So let's try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan.
Wrong.
I laid out
Sir,
back
it is
in
2
March
minutes.
exactly
so
what we
wrong.
should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if
Wait,
we would have listened to
You have 2 minutes, sir.
if we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000. And one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist and he's xenophobic because you
It's
didn't think I should
unrelated
have
to
closed
your
our country.
COVID.
No,
Wait a
sir,
minute.
It says 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of your Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job
Well, you
done.
didn't do very well in swine
I
flu.
know.
H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was
A
no
very-
economic recession.
Sir, you made a
There
Far
was-
less
there was no
lethal
recession.
disease,
you made a
by the way.
point. Let him answer.
And there was no one, we didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he's shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far
How
more
many
people.
people?
Far
That is-
more people.
And
You would have been
And by the way,
months late.
your own
You were
his
months behind me, Joe.
own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up. He said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine, we're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't
we
trust
Dr.
Johnson
Fauci.
Johnson, Pfizer?
And
Okay,
by the way,
gentlemen,
and
gentlemen, let me move on to questions about the future because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives.
God.
It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call them
you're
left, I don't know
suggesting
what I
that
call
the
them.
head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slaoui,
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just
Because
like
he
Dr.
said it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also
I'm
be
talking about when
after
it's
that.
generally available. not when it
Well,
will
we're
be.
going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up logistically. They're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
This is
delivering
the
the
same
vaccine.
man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the
That
same
was
man.
said sarcastically,
That was
and you
him.
know that.
I
That
don't-
was said sarcastically.
And so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up
You'll have
on
the
that.
vaccine
I
sooner
want to
than
pick
that.
up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying
Everybody
you can't, or
knows.
Senator
And
Harris is saying you
no,
can't trust the
No,
scientists.
well, no. You can trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust
She said the public health
Did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be
Yes.
suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists. There's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not. They're the people. And by
I
the way,
spoke to the
and Fauci,
scientists that are in
by
charge.
the way,
They will have
and
the vaccine very soon.
does-
Let him finish.
do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID. He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
So,
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years, you've done nothing.
Let's have this debate.
And if you would have had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
If you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
see,
and
he's
We're
it's
going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
okay.
It's going up fast. I look
Okay.
forward to talking.
When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to
Tell
provide
that to
them
Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to Nancy
the-
Pelosi. And Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with
Okay.
the Senate.
But-
And he sits on his golf course. And I mean,
Nah.
literally,
Okay.
think about it.
You probably
All right,
play
think
more than
about
I
it.
do, Joe.
What about this question of reopenings and the fact
Well, he wants to shut down this country,
Oh,
and I want to keep it open. And we
You
did a
get- he
great
just
thing by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a
Let-
minute,
let
Joe.
him
Let me
finish,
shut
sir.
you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election.
All right,
on
I
November
want to
3rd.
move on to another
Because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to
thing.
another
I
subject.
gotta
which
But
is-
respond.
those,
I
but
wanna
those
move-
states,
gentlemen,
those
wanna move
states
on to
are
another
not
subject.
doing well that are shut
which
down
is
right
gotta
now.
respond to that.
President
shut
Trump,
down the
you
whole
have
country.
begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are
of
okay. You have to
masks?
understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to, but I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rallies.
when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say
Vice
this.
President Biden, go ahead, sir.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The Congress.
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also
It
said the
matters.
opposite. They've
And
also said
no serious person said the opposite.
They've
no
also said, well, look
serious
all right, I
at
wanna
Dr.
ask you-
Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did not
I
say
want to
the
ask you, we
opposite.
got a
said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
Masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks good.
I
I'm
wanna
okay
ask-
with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both about
masks.
one last subject because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people.
Outside.
Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with
Because nobody will show up.
people with
Well, it's
Wait.
true. Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You goes first, sir.
because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done a
worried
great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you
and
not worried
hangars, and
about
we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issues,
people.
sir?
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see
Yes, sir.
one of the last big rallies he has? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no negative
cheek to
effect.
jowl. No negative effect.
We've
Come
had
on.
no negative effect. And we've had 35,
All
40,000
right. You
people
wanna-
at these rallies.
Just
Yes.
quickly finish up because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the social distancing and people wearing masks, basically encourage them not to.
All right.
He's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
Nobody cares.
gentlemen? Can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
The economy is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown
Much
This-
faster.
in the second quarter. The unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening at some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, when you look, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost, it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid
Well,
a total of $750 in
wrong.
taxes.
Sir,
Many
sir,
millions.
wait, no, sir, it's
It's
his
the
two.
wrong state.
Yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools, why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right. Your time is up, sir. Well, we are going to get to...
I have to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town. And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives. They'll be careful, but they want their schools open.
Okay.
I'm the one that brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And
all right,
people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know how I found out? When he took
gentlemen, we're going to
ad.
get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers. I paid $38 million 1 year. I paid $27 million.
Show us your tax returns.
I went, you'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under leveraged because the assets are extremely good. And we have a very, I built a great company.
I'm asking you a specific question, which is.
Let me tell you.
I understand all of that. I understand all of that. No, Mr. President, I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not 750.
Millions of dollars. And you'll get to see it. And you'll get to see it. But let me just tell you, Chris, let me just say something that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build the building and we get tax credits like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher makes on the money a school teacher makes is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't president. Because you weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator.
You're the worst president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe, I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing, including fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of your vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what is the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make this federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it before when you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was
right.
your tax proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed like it's never boomed.
The economy is busted.
Mr. President, Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for American people.
But let me,
Excuse me.
but in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming. It turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery since economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty of companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places. They will leave, and you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look,
Mr.
we
Vice
inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't
He blew
booming.
it. He blew it.
It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery
Sir, is it
since
fair to,
1929.
is it fair to say he blew it when, in
When
fact,
COVID
when there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse
number
me,
one.
Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you were number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would
This
take
guy
a
is
miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing.
We
Part
did
of
not
my
forget.
standard fare.
I'm the guy
He
that brought
totally
back
gave
the
up on
automobile
manufacturing.
industry.
All right, let him.
We brought back, I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having.
And they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit
China
with
ate
Mexico.
your lunch.
All right, gentlemen,
18%. China ate your lunch, Joe. And no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars, to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also,
Simply
while we're
not
at it,
true.
why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
None of that is true.
Let him answer.
None of that is true.
Oh, really? He didn't get
No,
$3.5 million?
Mr. President,
It's
Mr.
totally,
President, please.
totally
ask the question.
discredited. totally discredited. And by the way,
Well, wait, he
let's
didn't
talk-
get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
He got
Mr.
$3.5 million.
President,
that is not true.
Oh,
Here's-
really?
Mr.
Oh,
President,
But, Mr.
it's an open discussion, please.
Now,
It's a fact.
Well,
There's, it
you
is
have
not a
raised an
fact.
issue. Let the
It's been
Vice
totally
President answer.
discredited.
Did
There was a
Burisma pay him
report
$183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr.
Look,
President,
no
My
job?
son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he
and
did.
Mr.
The only
President,
guy that
let
did
him
something-
answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly
By
discredited.
who?
And
The
Ukraine.
media.
By everybody. Well, by the
By the
media,
media,
by our
because they refuse to
allies, by
talk
the
about it
World
because they're
Bank,
embarrassed.
by everyone has discredited. Matter of
Mr.
fact, even the people
President,
who
please stop.
testified under oath.
So let me
under
ask you
oath,
this,
and-
Joe.
and-
No,
under
no,
oath.
go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to
Even the
you.
people under,
He got $3.5
he
million from
testified-
Moscow.
he testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd like to know
honorably.
who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list
I'll
of the
fire
people who
them
No,
testified.
no, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a
Some
good
because
job.
Some people don't do
Well,
a good
here's
job. With you,
Go
they
ahead.
say
You
Well,
get the,
here's the
wait a
deal.
minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me, this.
Hey,
this
let me just
person.
say, Joe,
No, no, no.
No.
Mr. President.
$3.5
Mr.
million,
President,
Joe.
That is simply.
Why did
not
he
true.
deserve $3.5 million
It
from
did-
Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's
My
already.
family,
No, no, let him go.
my
Let-
family
already
lost
wrote
a fortune
Go
by
ahead,
coming down
Go
and helping
Go
us
ahead.
with
Go ahead,
government.
sir.
And that's
Every-
such a.
and they're right
That's
here.
it, Mr.
That's
President.
such
Every
a great-
single one of them lost
This
a
is not
fortune
about
by
President.
my
coming and
family or
helping
his
us with
family. It's
government.
about your family.
They
The
didn't
American
collect
people.
$3.5 million
He
for
doesn't,
nothing.
that's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking
Then
about
you
here.
All right,
Take
that's
Not
the end
about
of
here.
that's the end of the
Shouldn't have
segment.
taken the money.
We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well,
Vice
it's a very-
President,
but Chris,
no,
can I
ex-
be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
No,
That's
He
a good
stood
thing.
up,
No,
he stood up
the answer to
and
the
he
question is no.
Ukraine
No, sir.
with $1 billion
Sir,
if you don't
That
get rid of
is
the
if you're-
trust.
you know what, you're-
absolutely not
stop.
You're on
true.
tape
You're-
doing it.
you're gonna
You're on
have-
tape.
True.
Gentlemen,
Is-
I hate to raise my
Chris,
voice,
he's
but I
on
see it seems
tape.
to be, why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the
That's a
deal.
good point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting
Well, that's
than
all
he
right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than,
Yeah,
sir, less
does
than,
plenty.
no,
He
less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for Black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president's ever
Finish
said
the
anything
statement.
like that.
Finish the
It
statement.
is who's
Now,
2
second-
minutes, sir.
Second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African American community.
So,
President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with
he
racism?
did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day and they put up their hands and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it, but we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate, never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right.
What is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of a town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place, and you say peaceful protest?
President Trump,
No, it's not, but you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the issue of race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place. And you know it, and so does everybody
what
else.
Is radical,
and he would know.
What is
oh,
radical
totally
about racial sensitivity training? Sir?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and frankly, very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place. It's a racist place. And they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's the racist.
You just don't.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about this.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important that people know they don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson, you go to very many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but
Lord.
The reason is that
ridiculous.
the Democrats that run these cities don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
Violent
Are you
crime.
in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow it.
Are you in favor of law and order? Go
Yes,
ahead.
I'm
say it.
You asked a question, let him finish.
Law and order.
Law and order.
Let him
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more
he
in
had-
ours.
All right, we're now.
is president of
Mr.
the
President,
United
you're going
States
to.
of America.
Mr. President,
every record in the book.
Mr. President, you're going to be very happy because
And
we're now going to talk about law and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's
and
exactly my question.
Democratic-
There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer, particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact, there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime. It is crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would be gone. And you would see problems like you've never seen.
He wouldn't know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
I was
better.
raised,
Go ahead, wait a minute.
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles and racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean? And do you support,
It means
let me, if I might finish the question, what does reimagining policing mean? And do you support the Black Lives Matter call for community control of policing?
look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding, and his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what they're
in
talking about,
that's-
Chris. That's
well,
not what
that-
they're
that's
He's talking about
exactly-
defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any
Well,
law
Well, you
support.
look,
He has no law enforcement
that's not
support.
true.
Almost
That's
nothing.
not. Look,
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go
Look,
ahead.
look.
Think. We have time.
we don't have time to do
No,
anything.
think
except
All right.
about
listen.
it.
Look,
Name
folks,
one law enforcement group that came out and
I
supported
think, gentlemen,
you,
I think
Joe.
I'm going to take back the
There aren't.
moderator's
I don't
role,
think there
and
are any.
I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned
We're not
into
peaceful.
riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted. And anyone who commits it
But
should
you've
be
never called
prosecuted.
for the people,
He's never
the
said
leader, excuse me, sir. You had never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to call
Because
bring in
they-
the National Guard and knock
Well,
off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look, here,
Oh, really?
here-
Oh, really?
here's the
But
thing.
no,
I
that-
sent
sir,
in
no,
the
wait, I
U.S.
asked him a
Marshals to
question.
get the killer of the
that-
young man in the middle of the street. They shot him. And
Right.
for 3
Mr.
days,
President Trump,
Answers-
Portland
President
wouldn't do
Trump,
anything. I
please
had to send
interrupt
in
and-
the U.S. Marshals.
President
They
Trump,
took care of business.
go ahead,
And-
sir.
And by the way, you know, his own former spokesperson said, you know, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said
She said that.
that.
And so here's the
All right.
But here's the point.
Go
The
ahead.
point
sir.
is that that's what he is, keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly,
And-
every single solitary
Okay,
time.
and to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly
Well, wait, I
criticized.
have to answer his
No,
statement.
you have
His statement.
repeatedly.
Wait,
You have
just one
repeated. No,
second.
you've been talking
He
back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm asking you.
I would
no,
love to
you know,
end it.
sir.
I would love to end it. and
You know,
we
if
would
you want to
very-
switch seats,
we would very quickly.
we could do that. But
I'd
I'm
send
no,
in the
I'm-
National Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay,
But they
good.
don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups
Sure.
and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
Are you
I'm willing
prepared
to
to
do that,
specifically
but
Do it.
Well,
I
go
would
ahead,
say
sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right
So
wing.
what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists and
Who would
right
you like me to
supremacists.
condemn?
White
Proud Boys.
supremacists and right-wing
Proud
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
His
This
own
is a left-wing.
FBI director
This
said
is a
the threat
left-wing
from
problem.
white
Go ahead, sir.
supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got to be
not
kidding.
militia. That's what
Oh, really?
his
It's an idea.
FBI, his
Okay.
FBI director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well,
We're
then
gonna-
you know what?
No,
He's
no,
wrong.
we're done, sir. We're moving on to the next.
Everybody
We're
gives
When
moving.
a
you
bat
advice
hits
in
you
your
over the head, that's not
administration.
an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is bad.
administration tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas. that are-
Antifa is a dangerous
All right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
we're now moving on to the Trump
and
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When
in
a
2
president,
seconds.
I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. It was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. We've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president. You can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term. 300 judges. It's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused the recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head to head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got
No,
$3.5 million.
And by the way, my son.
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it. And why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you add
No,
back
no, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot. And the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about Hunter? Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter
you know
got
Bo.
thrown. Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He
for
wasn't dishonorably.
cocaine use, and he didn't have a job until you became vice president. Once you
None
became
of that
vice
is
president,
true.
he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
He
My
made a
son,
fortune,
My son,
and he didn't have a job.
my son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why
I'm
was he
proud of
given
my
tens
son.
of millions
All
of
right.
But
dollars?
he wasn't given
All right.
tens of
He
millions
was
of dollars.
given
That
tens
is
of
totally,
millions of
that's been
dollars.
totally
President Trump,
discredited.
you've already been
Totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial
So do I.
subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make
I know,
a
but when
judgment
somebody
call here.
gets $3.5 million
Okay, great.
from the
Let's talk
mayor
about-
of Moscow,
let's talk
That is
about-
not
I think it's a
true.
terrible
That
thing.
report is totally
Why did he get
discredited.
it?
I
Mitt
think,
Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers'
Gen-
money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
you know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have
believe?
cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very
Do
exciting
you believe
for a lot of people.
that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of
I
this
think
planet?
a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call, California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, you know, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground.
But, sir,
That's burning down because of a lack of
But
management.
sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars
Well,
and
not
trucks?
really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car. And you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by
But in the case of
$3,500.
California, they've simply
No,
ignored
but you would take a lot of
your
cars
rollback.
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And and I'm okay with electric cars too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that in fact is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is a guy who says that, well, the fact that it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings and rebuild the building.
No,
it's the dumbest, most ridiculous, where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the cows too. That's not true either, right? This is a 100 trillion. Look, that's more money than our country could make in 100 years if we're going to.
The case.
All right, let me because I actually wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good paying jobs.
But let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good paying jobs. And these tax incentives for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes, by the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said, maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
That's
at all.
He did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up.
We are going to be in a position where we can create hard hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now, billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. That didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact, but the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does, India does, they all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is
not
not
$20
my
billion.
plan.
That's
the Green
well,
New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is
building.
not my plan.
You want to rebuild every.
If he knew anything about, if he knew anything
He made a
about,
statement about the military. He said, I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
What
not
he
true.
did is he
You're done in
said
this segment.
he called the military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
And he
did
said
not
it on
say
tape.
that.
He said
Mr.
stupid
Please,
bastards. He
not
said
sir,
it.
stop.
I would never
I
say
would
that.
play
to the
it.
military.
Play it.
Go ahead.
You're
Mr.
on
Vice
tape.
President
The,
answered his final question.
the final question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings. was the
I'm
final
having a little
question.
trouble- I'm having a little trouble
That's
myself, but
Yeah.
and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the
the-
idea of what
the-
your
the Green
environmental
New
changes will
Deal-
do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you
We're going to
support
build.
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
You support?
No, I don't support the Green
Oh,
New
you
Deal.
don't? Oh, well,
Well,
that's a
you
big
let-
statement.
I
That
support
means you
the
just
Biden.
lost the radical left.
I support
you
the
don't.
Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment, election integrity. As we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How confident should we be that this will be a fair election? And what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks? Because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com. Going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not when the votes are counted and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change? Or you get 4 more years of these lies?
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from
As we welcome you back to our full spectrum of care, we want you to know we're ready for you. We've taken what we've learned in our operating rooms to prepare every room. High-touch surfaces are routinely sanitized. Physical distancing measures are in place. Each person is screened.
There's an investigation underway into a group trying to repeal Governor Gresham.
تحياتنا لكم اكيد متابعينا. خليني اتاكد انه عم تسمعوا صوتي بس. تحياتنا لكم اكيد متابعينا. كنا عم نتابع المناظره الرئاسيه الاولى، ومثل ما شايفيني انا عم بضحك صراحه. يعني انا قد صار لي عم بحضر مناظرات رئاسيه. هيدي المناظره الرئاسيه الاولى اللي بتكون هالقد مش قصه حاميه، يعني هالقد ضحكنا فيها صراحه للاسف. يعني من المضحك المبكي ما حصل في المناظره الرئاسيه الاولى في امريكا. ف رح نقول لكم بالتفاصيل ماذا حصل اليوم في المناظره الرئاسيه الاولى. شو تكلم كل مرشح رئاسي، وبيسيكلي شو صار. ف خلينا بس لحتى نتاكد، لانه رح يكون معنا ضيوف كمان رح ينضموا لي لحتى نعلق نحن وياهم على المناظره الرئاسيه الاولى التي حصلت صراحه. المناظره الرئاسيه الاولى حصلت وخلصت، يعني تقريبا هلا على الساعه 10:30 خلصت، وكانت ما بين الرئيس الامريكي دونالد ترامب والمرشح الجمهوري جو بايدن. بيسيكلي صارت هيدي المناظرة بكليفلاند بولاية أوهايو. بدأت الساعة 9 مساء بتوقيت شرق الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، وتناولت عدد كبير من المواضيع. تحدثوا عن الصحة، تحدثوا عن الكورونا فيروس، وتبادلوا الاتهامات. وكمان كان عم بيعلق كان عم بيعلق نائب الرئيس السابق جو بايدن على قصة انه موضوع لقاح كورونا فيروس، وهل مزبوط هذا اللقاح رح يطلع دغري مثل ما عم بيوعد الرئيس الامريكي. وشكك بايدن في هذه المقولة انه رح يطلع الفاكسين دغري، اللقاح. اكيد يتكلموا عن الرعاية الصحية، وتحدث بايدن عن قصة انه الأوباما كير اللي هو عمله هو والرئيس الأمريكي دونالد ترامب يحاول أن، هو رئيس أمريكا أوباما أكيد، إنه ترامب حاليا عم بيحاول إنه يمحي الأوباما كير، وبالتالي بده يخسر تقريبا ملايين الأمريكيين الرعاية الصحية اللي عندهم إياها. الرئيس الأمريكي دونالد ترامب أشار إلى القرار التنفيذي الأخير اللي أخذه تقريبا من بضع أيام، واللي من خلاله لهيدا القرار حمى الاشخاص اللي عندهم pre-existing conditions، يعني عندهم امراض مزمنه من قبل. وصف المقدم المناظره بانه هيدا القرار قرار تنفيذي، بس قرار يعني مظهره، بس مثل ما بنقول نحن بالعربي الدارج. فاكيد يعني اللي ميز هيدي اوكي اكيد اللي ميز هيدي المناظره هي بنسميها نحن بالانجليزي النيم كولينج، يعني صاروا يعيطوا لبعضهم اسماء اول مره ما بنعهدها نحن صراحه بمناظرات رئاسيه امريكيه. يعني بايدن عيط له للرئيس ترامب كلاون، يعني يا مهرج، فاهم كيف؟ وقال له شرب، يعني مثل ما بنقول باللغه العربيه الدارجه سكر تمك الى حد ما، او اخرس. فهيدا ما ميز شوي المناظرة الرئاسية الأولى. هيدي أول مناظرة بتصير، أكيد رح يكون في مناظرات أخرى رح تصير، مناظرتين كمان. بايدن قال له للرئيس الأمريكي أنت أسوأ رئيس في تاريخ الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية. وكمان ترامب قال له لبايدن انه اذا انت صرت رئيس لبايدن رح نخسر نصف الشركات، رح يغادروا امريكا، مش رح يفتحوا بامريكا. وكمان بموضوع الضرائب، مثل ما بتعرفوا موضوع الضرائب موضوع كتير كبير، وخصوصا في الايام السابقه التي يعني سبقت المناظره الرئاسيه الاولى. اللي صار انه نيويورك تايمز، جريده نيويورك تايمز تحدثت عن انه الرئيس ترامب بسنتين دافع بس $750 ضرائب. فاشار الى هيدا الموضوع مرشح الديمقراطي بايدن، فجاوبوا الرئيس ترامب انه هو لا، دفع ملايين الدولارات، بالسابق، واشار انه بعض السنوات دفع 30 مليون، بعض السنوات الاخرى، بس كمان عارض حاله الرئيس ترامب في نفس الاجابه وقال له انه انا استفدت من القوانين اللي سنيتها انت والرئيس اوباما. يعني ناقض حاله. يعني اول شيء قال انه انا دفعت ضرائب بالملايين الدولارات، رجع بنفس الاجابه على بايدن اشار انه هو بيسكلي استفاد من القوانين او التاكس كود اللي نحن بنقول له، اللي حاطه اوباما واللي حاطه بايدن. اكيد نحن في انتظار انه ينضم لنا بعض الضيوف لحتى نحلل المناظره الرئاسيه. المناظره الرئاسيه اللي حصلت مثل ما قلنا لكم بكليفلاند اوهايو، واللي كان عم بيدير هيدي المناظره مراسل او صحفي من الفوكس نيوز. مثل ما بنعرف الفوكس نيوز هي تتبع يعني الى فلك والى مدار والى جمهور الرئيس دونالد ترامب. اكيد خليني اخذ شو رايكم بالمناظره. خلينا ناخذ رايكم بالمناظره في انتظار ضيوفنا لينضموا لنا. اكيد خلينا نشوف بعض الاراء. اكيد اذا فيكم تكتبوا لنا ارائكم في مربع التعليقات لحتى نحن وياكم نتشارك لبضع الوقت اكيد قبل ما نخلص البث المباشر الخاص بالمناظره الرئاسيه الاولى. فاذا فيكم تحطوا لنا ارائكم بالمناظره الرئاسيه الاولى، كيف لقيتوها، مين بتعتقدوا فاز بالمناظره الرئاسيه الاولى، فاكتبوا لنا ارائكم بمربع التعليقات لحتى نبلش نحن وياكم لحتى ناخذ ارائكم. اكيد انت رايك، اكيد نحن في انتظار ارائكم. سيد بيقول بايدن. نسرين بتقول والله الشعب امام خيارين والاثنين اسوأ من بعض. دان ترامب اوكي، نحترم اراء الجميع. اكيد تحدي بايدن كون في حدا اوكي. يوز ذا تاكس كود، نعم مزبوط. اكيد اوكي تمام. فاكيد خليني بدي اعطيكم مثل ملخص لما حصل اليوم في هيدي المناظره اللي صارت ما بين اكيد الرئيس دونالد ترامب والمرشح الديمقراطي جو بايدن. ورح نعطيكم اخر التفاصيل. اكيد نحن كتبنا بعض النقاط التي حصلت، يعني رح نحاول نلخص لكم اللي صار. فمثل ما قلنا لكم صارت مواجهه حول موضوع فيروس. اول شيء كانت حول الرعايه الصحيه، وترامب ذكر انه هو عمل على خفض اسعار الادويه، ورد بايدن انه ترامب لم يقدم اي دعم للشعب الامريكي في المجال الطبي، وكل ما يقوله ترامب حتى الان هو كذب. قطعه ترامب وقال له هلا تخرس يا رجل، يعني قال له اسكت. فمين كيف؟ واتهم ترامب بايدن بانه لم يقدم شيئا للمجتمع الامريكي على مدى 47 عام. قصده لما بايدن كان هو سنتر، يعني كان بمجلس الشيوخ، ولما صار نائب رئيس لمده 2 سنين رجعوا تكلموا عن قصه فيروس كورونا. وقال بايدن انه ترامب لم تكن لديه خطه في مواجهه كورونا، متهما الرئيس الامريكي بتجاهل الازمه وممارسه لعبه الجولف. هي مثل ما بنعرف نحن لعبه الجولف هي المفضله الى الرئيس الامريكي دونالد ترامب. وكمان من جانبه ترامب اكد انه العديد من الدول لم تعلن صراحه عن عضويتها من جراء الفيروس مثل امريكا. يعني ترامب قال اوكي عم تتهموني انه انا عندنا 200,000 واحد ماتوا بامريكا من وراء كورونا فيروس، وعم بتقولوا بالصين وبروسيا في ارقام صغيره. طيب ما الصين وروسيا ما بيعطوا ارقامهم، يعني ما بيعطوا الارقام الصحيحه. هيدي اللي قالها الرئيس دونالد ترامب. اكيد رح ينضم لي مثل ما قلت لكم اشخاص لحتى وخبراء سياسيين لحتى نحلل هذا الموضوع. بعتقد انضم لي الناشط السياسي والاجتماعي عامر زهر، رح نرحب فيه. بس اعطوني دقيقه بس لاعطيكم بعض النقاط. اكيد كمان انتقلوا الى نقطه ضرائب تبع ترامب وحول الاقتصاد. وقال بايدن ان ترامب دفع فقط $750 كضرائب في ال10 سنوات الماضيه، واصحاب المليارات لا يدفعون الضرائب. نفى ترامب صحه هذه المعلومات، مؤكدا ان دفع الملايين كضرائب على مدى سنوات دون ان يكشف انه دفع ملايين، يعني على مدى السنوات التي مضت دون ان يكشف عن رقما محددا. واضاف ترامب حققنا ارقاما قياسيه في مجال الاقتصاد، وبايدن يريد اغلاق الولايات المتحده لمواجهه كورونا. وكما يعني مثل ما سمعنا من قبل اتهم ترامب نجل بايدن بالحصول على 3 ملايين من موسكو، وهذا ما نفاه بايدن منتقدا التطرق الى شؤون اسريه. بعدين حكوا عن الاحتجاجات العرقيه البروتست اللي عم بتصير بقلب امريكا، وقال بايدن انه ما من رئيس تعامل مع المساله العرقيه مثل ترامب، منتقدا خروج ترامب خلال المظاهرات العرقيه وحمل الانجيل والتوجه الى كنيسه قريبه من البيت الابيض. واضاف بايدن ان معظم ضحايا كورونا من الافارقه الامريكيين، مشيرا الى الظلم ممنهج في تطبيق القانون. ورد ترامب متهما بايدن بالتعامل مع الامريكيين الافارقه بأسوأ ما يمكن، وقال ان بايدن اطلق عليهم تعبير مفترسي عظام. اكيد كمان تحدثوا عن نزاهه الانتخابات، وقال بايدن انه لا توجد اي مخاوف من تزوير الانتخابات بالبريد، وترامب هو الوحيد الذي يؤمن بهذا التلاعب، والرئيس يحاول إخافة الناس من التصويت. من جانبه شدد ترامب على أن التصويت بالبريد كارثة، واتهم باراك أوباما وهيلاري كلينتون بالتجسس على حملته الانتخابية. وأضاف ترامب أنه يعول على المحكمة العليا للنظر في قضية التصويت بالبريد وما يشوبه من تزوير، وعلق بأن نتيجة الانتخابات قد لا تعلن قبل شهر. هيدا كتير أمر خطير صراحة. أنا بدي عامر، بدنا نرحب فيك أكيد إذا أنت صرت جاهز معنا. الأستاذ عامر زهر، أهلا وسهلا فيك.
مرحبا، سلامات.
أنا I know في شوية background noise، بس as long as your voice is good عامر، نحن يعني we're fine، يعني مهم إنه نسمعك نحن. عامر، بدي انطلق من النقطة الأخيرة اللي أشرت لها أنا عن قصة ما ذكر الرئيس ترامب، وخليني أرجع لك إياها بالحرف الواحد. ترامب يعول على المحكمة العليا في النظر في قضية التصويت بالبريد وما يشوبها من تزوير، وعلق بأن نتيجة الانتخابات قد لا تعلن قبل شهر. شو تعليقك على هذا الموضوع عامر؟
Well, first I'm going to speak in English.
احكي عربيزي يا عامر.
عربيزي مش مشكلة.
يلا.
أول إشي إنه أنا يعني حضرت كل المناقشة.
نعم.
واو. I mean, you know, عندنا كلمة بالعربي فوضى، يعني كانت فوضى. You know, we have two more of these things, and I think we have to be very prepared for this is going to be the mood of this election. I mean, I think really a lot of things started tonight. You know, we're going to see more of this, and look, the voting system, forget about whether or not, you know, there is potential for frauds and all these things that Trump says. We do know this. It's going to be different than any election we've ever had before. You know, we might have a majority of people voting via mail-in ballots, and that does mean, you know, I'm old enough, I think maybe you're old enough too, إنه إحنا بنتذكر انتخابات 2000.
نعم.
وهذا كان
الجور versus بوش.
وهذا كان بس بولاية، يعني بس ولاية واحدة
بفلوريدا.
that was something that we didn't know the answer until December. You know, so, and the Supreme Court got involved. I think, you know, as a law professor, to me, it seems very likely that we might end up in a situation where the courts are involved. And no question that that's why Trump wants to push through this Supreme Court nominee, to make sure that he has a court that is more on the conservative side on this kind of thing.
شو بتعتقد انتو المنافسة او الحوار اللي عم بيصير او المنافسة اللي عم بتصير في موضوع المحكمة العليا وتعيين قاضي في المحكمة العليا هو كمان يتعلق في موضوع الانتخابات؟ وكمان اشار له الرئيس ترامب اليوم في المناظرة الرئاسية،
اعترف بالشيء، يعني
اعترف فيها،
يعني قال انه بده يعلي ايمي كوني بارت على السوبريم كورت.
نعم.
عشان اذا هذا الامر بيجي قدام الحكومة العليا انه يناقشوها ويحللوها. And this is, look, Trump's an honest guy. He's a bad guy, but he's an honest guy, and he is being very clear about what he wants with this thing. So I mean, this is look, this is unprecedented. ما صارش إشي زي هدول الظروف بكل تاريخ أمريكا. وأنا درست تاريخ، يعني أنا درست تاريخ، أستاذ قانون. ما صارش إشي زي هدول الظروف بالمجتمع الأمريكي. It's never happened before. So we have to be very, very ready for possible, you know, confusion, and especially in the Arab American community, we have to make sure we educate our public about what they have to do. You know, إحنا بنعرف مثلاً بديربورن
نعم.
بتقدر تاخذ ميل ان بالوت، او بتقدر تروح على المدينه، على البلديه،
على السيتي كليرك،
على السيتي كليرك، وتنتخب بنفس الوقت، تاخذ البالوت وتنتخب وترجع البالوت بنفس الوقت.
تقريبا بامريكا تقريبا بامريكا كلها نفس السيستم تقريبا هيدي السنه، وين فيك تصوت عبر البريد الالكتروني، او فيك تروح على مركز المدينه تبعك وفيك تصوت هونيك، او فيك تنتظر لنهار الانتخابات في نوفمبر 3 يعني ب 11/3 لحتى تصوت بشكل مباشر. ما بعرف اذا علي منصور صار جاهز، بدنا نشوف اذا صار جاهز الصحافي علي منصور. خلينا نعطيه ثانيه لعلي، اذا صار جاهز ساعتها بناخده. صار جاهز علي؟ خلينا نتاكد. علي منصور صار جاهز معنا؟ صار فينا ناخدك؟
ايه معك أنا.
الاستاذ علي منصور اكيد الصحافي في جريده صدى الوطن العربيه الامريكيه. تحياتنا لك استاذ علي، انت انضميت لنا قبل البدء في المناقشه وتحدثنا عن يعني ماذا يمكن ان يحصل اليوم. علي، اذا بدك تعطيني كلمه وحده كديسكريبشن او كوصف لما حصل اليوم في هذه المناظره، شو بتقول؟
اول تحيه اول شيء لك وللاستاذ عامر ظهر، وعفوا على التاخير. كنت بعدني عم تابعها ووقفت الانترنت حضرتها بشكل متاخر.
نعم.
ليك بكل الحالات طبعا كنت قايل لك انا انه بتوقع انه حيكون في نقاط حيسجلها ترامب، حيربح ترامب بالمناظره، واللي فاجأني انه بايدن يعني كان اداؤه جيد اكثر من المتوقع. حسب ما لاحظت انه ترامب ما كان مبسوط من المناظره، وباخر المناظره لما انتهت المناظره انتهت على ضحكه عريضه من بايدن وعبسه وتجهم من الرئيس ترامب. رجع ارفقها بضحكه بس عكست عدم رضا عن المناظره. كمان المقدم حاول انه يلعب دور يفرجينا انه حيادي، فكان عنده يعني يمكن اكثر من بديش اقول انه هجوم، اكثر من اندفاع على ترامب. واخر شيء يعني قال له ترامب انه انا جاي اعمل مناظره معه، مش جاي اعمل مناظره معك، كنت بفكر بدي اعمل معه. فهذه بتعكس انه حاول يلعب دور حيادي ممكن المقدم، بس بشكل عام انه اداء جو بايدن كان جيد. هلا بدنا ناخذ بعين الاعتبار انه كل مواضيع كانت هي هجوميه على ترامب لانه هو بالسلطه. فمنبلش اول شيء من موضوع التمييز العنصري، من المحكمه العليا، تعيين القاضي البارد بالمحكمه العليا.
نعم.
موضوع التمييز العنصري، موضوع قبول نتائج الانتخابات، موضوع التغير المناخي، كلها امور اشكاليه اصلا ترامب كان مغلط فيها ورجع تراجع عنها. والملفت انه رجع ترامب بالرغم من انه كان على التغير المناخي كان ناكره ورافضه بهذه المناظره، رجع اقر فيه ورجع ساله كمان سالوا المقدم انه طب ما انت اذا انت قبلان هلا انت اقريت، ليش رفضت اتفاقيه اوباما المناخيه وليش انسحبت من اتفاقيه المناخ الدوليه؟ فهون في عده نقاط كانت سلبيه يعني تسجل على الرئيس ترامب، ومنها يعني اهم موضوع اللي هو اخر سؤال انه ترامب انه ما اقر انه هو بده يدعي جمهوره ومؤيديه للانضباط بحال بعد ما ويقبلوا النتائج بعد اقفال صناديق الاقتراع. بينما جو بايدن يعني قبل النتيجه وقال انه انا بقبل بالنتيجه شو ما كانت تكون، اذا كنت ربحان او اذا كنت خسران، واذا كنت ربحان حكون رئيس لكل امريكا، للحزب الجمهوري والحزب الديمقراطي. بينما ترامب هون بين عن ضعف بهيدي النقطه تحديدا، انه انا ما حاقبل بالحكم اذا ما كان الحكم لصالحي. يعني هذه باختصار بجو عام، ما بعرف اذا بدك تفوت بالتفاصيل.
طيب خليني
عن الموضوعات
اكيد بدنا نفوت بالتفاصيل عن المواضيع الاكيد اللي طرقت عن هذا الموضوع. عامر، ما تعليقك على اللي ذكره الاستاذ علي منصور فيما يتعلق بانه الاداء تبع جو بايدن اليوم، وبشكل عام كمان نفس السؤال، من تعتقد فاز بالمناظره اليوم؟
Look, I think إنه المناظرة الليلة ما كانتش اللي بدعموا الديمقراطيك بارتي أو اللي بدعموا الريبابليكان بارتي. المناظرة وعادة المناظرات بيكونوا للاندبندنت فوترز، بيكونوا
نعم.
للاندسايدد فوترز، وهدول اليوم بيكونوا من 5 ل 7% من المنتخبين. I think that when Biden says, look, Biden did okay, and I think Trump did okay. Also, when there is fawda in the debate, this is good for Trump right? ترامب بدوش يحكي بالإيشوز، بدوش يحكي بالمشاكل اللي قدامه، بده يخلي فوضى، بده يشجع الفوضى. And that happened tonight. I mean, he succeeded with that. Now, when I think when Biden tells Trump, "Shut up," or "You're crazy," or this is not good for Biden. You know, Biden's whole نوع Biden, he is above this stuff. He's a statesman. He is calm. And there was many times tonight where Trump's whole game is to make Biden sort of, say something bad or say something wrong. And he
get under his skin.
Yeah, get under his skin. That's right. And a lot of times that worked tonight. So, look, obviously, if you support Trump, nothing changed tonight. If you support Biden, nothing changed tonight. This is really about people in the middle, the 5, 6, 7% that are going to decide this election. And I'm not sure where it went. I think Trump made some points with the law and order stuff and the riots. There's a big part of white America that agrees with him on that. And when we talk about 5 or 6% undecided voters, they're mostly white. Biden also made some points with talking about, COVID and these things. But I don't know. I'm not sure. We have 2 more of these things. I mean, this is going to be a circus, man.
خليني اتحدث في النقاط التي تتعلق نحن فينا كعرب. انا يمكن شوي نحن مستغربين لم يتم التطرق الى يمكن الاميجريشن هو للكل كالهجره، ملف هجره، بس كمان يعني الجاليه العربيه بشكل كبير. برايكم لماذا لم يتم التطرق الى ملف الهجره او الاميجريشن، ولترامب باع كبير في هذا الموضوع؟ تفضل استاذ علي منصور.
هلا يمكن طبعا ما تطرقوا لهذا الموضوع لانه المقابله نسبيا هي 90 دقيقه يعني، ومواضيع كتير كانت كبيرة وبدها حكي أكتر. حتى بتحس إنه حتى هيدي المواضيع اللي حكوا فيها ما أخذت وقتها، يعني ما قدروا يشرحوا فيها أكتر. فطبيعي إنه يمكن ما كانت محطوطة على جدول الأعمال، بس بقى على جدول المناظرة يعني. بس بتصور يمكن بالمناظرة بعد في المناظرات الجاي بتصور حيتطرقوا لهذا الموضوع ولكل يمكن الأمور اللي بنى عليها ترامب حملته الانتخابية وشو حقق وما شو. بتصور حيتطرقوا لهذا الشيء. بس كمان أنا بوافق الأستاذ عامر بالشيء اللي قاله صحيح. وانا كنت سبقت وقلت لك انه بالنهايه في انقسام عمودي بالبلد بين حزب جمهوري وحزب ديمقراطي، وهيدي المناظره ما حتحسم الرئاسه وما حتحسم. بس بالنهايه طبعا هي حتعطي مؤشر، يعني مؤشر عن شو ممكن يصير بعدين بالانتخابات. وكمان انه طبعا انه هيدي بتاثر على الناس اللي ما عندهم انتماء، يعني اللي هن نسبه قليله جدا 5 أو 6%. بس ما ننسى نحن انه هول ال5 أو 6% كمان هن يعني بيعدلوا الميزان الانتخابي.
بيقلبوا الميزان.
بال 2016 ربح على 0.25% أو 0.5% ترامب في موضوع الانتخابات. فطبعا اذا بدنا نحن بدنا نفصل المقابله او المناظره يعني طبعا في نقاط ضعف وفي نقاط قوه. انه طبعا في مثل ما كمان ذكر عامر انه بموضوع اللو انفورسمنت وكل هذه الامور انه ما قدر. كان جو بايدن جدا محرج يعني، حتى لما قال له ترامب انه سمي لي بس شي حدا من اللو انفورسمنت انه هو يدعمك، او قال له ما عندي وقت او ما في وقت، يعني بمعنى انه ما في حدا. هو فعلا نحن بنشوف هون امام انقسام، انه انقسام يعني انقسام بامريكا، انقسام بكل هذه المواضيع الاساسيه اللي حتى هلا، خصوصا بهذا الموضوع، بموضوع الاعمال الشغب اللي صارت واعمال التمييز العنصري. هيدي شغله كتير مهمه، انه وخاصه انه اذا اعتبرنا انه غالبيه امريكا هي من البيض. بالرغم من انه ترامب كان عنده بايدن كان عنده نقاط كتير منيحة سجلها بهذا الموضوع، بموضوع الاحتجاجات والتمييز. بس ولكن هيدي أمام البيض عم تخسره. لما حكى بهذا الموضوع صحيح انه هو قال شيء كتير منيح بايدن، وشيء اخلاقي، وشيء يعني بتحترمه. بس ولكن هيدا عم بيخسروا انتخابيا لبايدن، لانه مثل ما بنعرف نسبة الافارقة السود بامريكا هي نسبة قليلة جدا، يعني بمقابلة في نسبة كتير كبيرة من البيض. فبالتالي فمثل ما بقولوا حكم الأقوى يعني، فكل شيء في له إيجابية وفي مقابل وسلبيات كمان.
عامر أنا بدي أتطرق معك، أكيد فيك تجاوب على اللي قاله الأستاذ علي منصور، بس كمان بدي أتطرق معك على نقطة بتخصك إلك أنت شخصيا، كونك كنت من السيرجتس تبع بيرني ساندرز. اليوم بايدن والذي ذكره بأنه أنا هزمت I've beaten Bernie Sanders، وحاول يبين انه هو he's a tough guy، وهو الذي هزم بيرني ساندرز، وهو اخذ التسميه وكان رح يربح عليه بسلايد مارك. هل يا ترى هيدي رح تضر ببايدن انه يستقطب الاشخاص والمواليين اللي هن كانوا لبيرني ساندرز وانت واحد منهم؟
I think انه بايدن عمل غلطه كبيره الليله، انه حكى جملتين، حكى I am the Democratic Party،
نعم،
وكمان حكى انه هزمت بيرني ساندرز I beat him bad.
نعم.
في انا من الناس اللي I think that if Biden wants to win, it's not by getting more people from the middle, but by expanding the amount of people who might vote for him على اليسار.
نعم.
And I think انه ليلي يمكن اختصر ناس من اليسار، يعني لما بحكي حكى I'm not for the Green New Deal،
نعم.
حكى I am not for Medicare for all، حكى I am the Democratic Party. في ناس اللي مش راح يفكروا ينتخبوا لترامب، انا منهم، يعني انا انا مستحيل انتخب لترامب، right؟ بس انا كمان بدي سبب، بدي واحد يشجعني، بدي بايدن يشجعني انه انتخب له، ومش بس عشان هو مش ترامب. I'm not Trump is not something that's going to bring in a lot of voters, and so especially young voters. And so the question is, how does Biden make that bigger? It seems that he's stuck on this strategy, which is the middle, the white middle people, and we've seen that not a lot of them turn. So that's the first thing I saw tonight. The second thing is هاي المناظرة كانت على السياسة، basically على السياسة الداخلية.
نعم.
الاقتصاد، الاحتجاجات، العنصرية. راح يكون كمان two more debates راح يحكوا بالسياسة الخارجية، بالهجرة، بالأشياء اللي بتخصنا إحنا أكتر كجالية عربية. and we're going to be listening to that much more. اللي أنا خايف منه، بس كمان بتوقعه إنه مثلا لما بيحكوا بالسياسة الخارجية بالنسبة
إسرائيل،
الكيان الصهيوني لإسرائيل، راح يكون في مسابقة بين ترامب وبين بايدن عن مين بحب إسرائيل أكتر. وشو رح نعمل إحنا كجالية عربية لما نسمع هذا الكلام؟ It's going to be very hard, and so we have to really listen very closely. ومضل أنا عشان هيك كناشط اللي بخصني الجالية العربية، مش اللي بخصني إنه بايدن يفوز. اللي بخصني الجالية العربية، أنا عشان هيك بقول إنه لازم نطالب أكتر، لازم نحكي أكتر، لازم ننقد أكتر، عشان يعرف إنه أصواتنا مش رخيصة. إحنا بدنا policies نشوف من بايدن إنه راح يساعدنا بالسياسة الخارجية، بالهجرة. شو راح يحكي بهدول الأمور بنشوف. يعني we have look 3 weeks from now will be the last debate, and then we have 2 more weeks till the election. We really have to wait.
عندنا 35 يوم ليوم الانتخابات، ابتداء من اليوم، يعني لنهار الانتخابات بنوفمبر 3 لدينا 35 يوم صراحة.
عشان كل يعرف، عشان كل المحاضرين يعرفوا انه في كمان اسبوع في ديبيت للفايس بريزيدنتس، كمان اسبوعين
نعم.
في كمان اسبوعين في المناظره الثانيه بين بايدن وترامب، وكمان 3 اسابيع، يعني اكتوبر 15 راح يكون المناظره الثانيه، واكتوبر 22 راح يكون اخر مناظره بين ترامب وبايدن، بعدين راح يكون كمان اسبوعين للانتخابات. So we really have, I know it doesn't sound like a long time, but it's a long time until the election, and we're going to learn so many more things.
علي، بدي أسألك أستاذ علي، هناك أصوات كثيرة، ومن هذه الأصوات عامر اللي موجود معنا، الأستاذ عامر زهر اللي موجود معنا اليوم، اللي عم بيقولوا نحن ما بدنا نعطي لبايدن بلانك تشيك، نحن ما بدنا نعطيه تشيك على بياض انه اذا نحن ما بنحب ترامب رح نعطيك صوتنا. بس هل تعتقد انه هذا الموفمنت او هذا التحرك انه رح يضر بالديمقراطيين وحظوظهم في الحصول على الرئاسة الأمريكية هيدي السنة؟ لأنه إذا أنت مش رح تصوت لبايدن معناتها الأصوات سوف تذهب إلى ترامب. واكيد يا عامر رح اعطيك الوقت لحتى تجاوب على هذا السؤال كمان، لانه حضرتك ناشط بشكل مش طبيعي على هذا الموضوع. عم تعمل برامج اسبوعيه، عم بتطلع بريس ريليزز، عم تحكي، عم تعمل مناظرات. فرح ناخذ راي استاذ علي ونرجع لك عامر لنحكي عن وجهه نظرك في هذا الموضوع.
صحيح. نحن يعني انا كتبت يمكن بالالكشن القديمه بال 2016 انه اصواتنا ليست بالمجان اللي وقتها كانت هيلاري كلينتون وترامب، وقلنا هذا الكلام انه نحن ما لازم نعطي اصواتنا بدون ثمن. بس نحن للاسف نحن عايشين بمشكله كثير نحن كعرب عم بحكي بمشكله كثير كبيره بالولايات المتحده الامريكيه، انه عندنا نحن اللوبي الصهيوني يتحكم بمفاصل البلد، يتحكم بمفاصل الاعلام، يتحكم بمفاصل الاقتصاد. يعني نحن عندنا الايباك، وطبعا نفتخر فيها للايباك، وكلنا بندعم الايباك لانه هي بتمثل رمزيه للعمل العربي المشترك بالولايات المتحده الامريكيه، ولو انها كانت بعدها محصوره على مستوى ميشيغان. ونحن بنسعى، وعلى طول انا من الاصوات كانت اللي بتنادي انه توسيع شبكه ايباك لتصير على مستوى الولايات المتحده الامريكيه. وطبعا ما فينا ننكر دور عامر زهر هو ناشط بهذا الموضوع، وله علاقات، وله كمان رمزيه انه انسان فلسطيني، مش من اصل فلسطيني، هو فلسطيني. فهيدي شغله كثير مهمه بهذا الموضوع.
علي بس اذا نور حاتركك تجاوب، بس كونك ذكرت ايباك المؤسسه العربيه الامريكيه للعمل السياسي، بدي اياكم تحكوا عن هذا الموضوع. هل ايباك دعمت بايدن بس لانه ما بطيق ترامب، ولا شو هو كان البروسس لحتى دعموا بايدن؟ هل بايدن تقدم بطلب من ايباك انه يعطوه دعم؟
خليني كفي لك هذا الموضوع. بس خليني كفي لك انا اللي كنت
بدي لك. تفضل. اكيد. بس
انا كنت بدي اقول لك ايباك، عم اقول لك نحن الايباك العربيه، وكنت بدي اقول لك الايباك الاسرائيليه.
نعم.
نحن عندنا الايباك وفي عندك الايباك الاسرائيلي. للاسف انه يمكن من المفارقات انه الاسماء متشابهه جدا، وحتى الكتابه باللغه العربيه هي كتابه واحده، يعني بنكتبها بنفس المسمى بس. ولكن للاسف انه الايباك الصهيونيه انه هي منظمه مدعومه من كل اليهود في الولايات المتحده الامريكيه، او بدي اقول لك من كل الصهاينه بشكل اساسي. وللاسف انه انا بحسدها الايباك على نحن للاسف بجاليتنا. الايباك كانت بلشت مثلا ببدايه ال2000 مثلا، بهذه الفتره بلش نشاط الايباك، ونحن كنا بنتمنى انه يكون في انه اجماع حول هالايباك من كل الشرائح العربيه والشرائح المسلمه العربيه. لما بقول عربيه يعني مسلمه ومسيحيه، للجميع يكون حول ايباك. للاسف نحن عندنا خلافات كتير كبيره. نحن بنعمل منظمه ايباك، بنشوف انه بعد شوي عملوا منظمه تانية باسم تاني رديف، لانه بقول لك انه هيدي ايباك فيها طابع معين، نحن بدنا شيء. يعني فوتنا العامل المذهبي والعامل الطائفي وهيدي العوامل. للاسف هذا واقعنا المرير، انه نقلنا خلافاتنا من العالم العربي وجبناها لهون على امريكا، بدل ما نعمل كلنا من كل الدول العربيه ومن كل الطوائف والمذاهب نعمل انه كلنا لمصلحه وحده لصالح عام واحد. نحن بعدنا بعاد عن هذا الموضوع للاسف. هون بدي اشير لموضوع معين، انه نحن مثل ما كنت عم لك انه علقانين بين المر وبين الامر، بين السيء وبين الاسوأ بالنسبة لدولة الكيان الإسرائيلي، للاحتلال الإسرائيلي. هذه المشكلة عندنا، إنه الأيباك الإسرائيلية مدعومة دعم مطلق من دولة الكيان الإسرائيلي، مدعومة من رجال الأعمال الصهاينة حول العالم، عندها أموال وعندها إمكانات ضخمة. نحن اللي الايباك اللبنانيه، او عفوا مش اللبنانيه، الايباك العربيه اللي فيها
هلا ثبت له اياها.
لا الايباك مين داعمها؟ انه مين داعمها؟ مين على شو بتقوم؟ يعني ما في مؤسسات وما في يعني رجال اعمال بمستوى عالي بيدعموها. فللاسف نحن عالقين بين السيء وبين الأسوأ. طبعا نسعى لانه ناخذ قد ما فينا، نحاول ناخذ تنازلات من المرشحين على اساس انه نحاول ناخذ حد ادنى من المطالب، بس لنوصل لانه نفرض اجنده سياسيه على الرئيس. هذا صعب جدا،
بدنا وقت. علي بس بشكل عام انا لانه بدي اخذ منك نقط سريعه. ايباك العربيه، المؤسسه العربيه الامريكيه، لما عملوا دعم لبايدن بناء على شو؟ بناء على انه هو ديمقراطي وايباك على طول بتدعم الديمقراطيين، ولا بناء على انه الزلمه قدم طلب لحتى ياخذ الدعم؟ وعامر فيك تجاوب لانه انت كمان اصلا من ايباك.
هلا عامر بيعرف في هذا الموضوع اكثر مني، بس بعرف انا حسب الاصول انه ايباك ما بتدعم حدا الا ما يطلب منا الدعم، يعني ما بتدعم بالمجان. بس عامر بيقدر يجاوب عن هذا السؤال اكثر.
وعشان نوضح للناس انه خلينا نقول الايباك العربي، في الايباك العربيه والايباك الصهيونيه.
نعم.
الايباك العربيه اللي موجوده هون في ديربون دعمت وعطت اندورسمنت لجو بايدن. ليش؟ لانه احنا اول our first priority, our first job is انه نمثل الجاليه.
نعم.
right? I don't think anyone لا في شك انه الجاليه العربيه راح تصوت اكثر شيء لجو بايدن. No question about that. زي ما صوتت اكثر لهيلاري كلينتون. بس السؤال لإلي مش التصويت، مش النسبة بالتصويت. السؤال الأكبر إنه كيف راح يكون الحضور.
نعم.
المشاركة.
Right. المشاركة في الانتخابات.
Right, exactly. And that is where Joe Biden has a problem with the Arab community. Sure, I understand that people want to endorse Joe Biden, but what are we getting from this? أنا فلسفتي النشاطات السياسية إنه إحنا كجالية كشعب إحنا اللي بنقبل بالسياسي، مش السياسي اللي بيقبل فينا. So we have to get things from him, okay? إحنا دايماً we measure ourselves by what a politician thinks of us. No, we should do the opposite. We should make the politician measure himself by what we think of him. I always tell people, don't take a picture with a politician. Do something that makes a politician want to take a picture with you. That's why لازم نطلب مطالب. ولازم نطلب كلام من جو بايدن انه يحكي بحقوق الفلسطينية، بوقف السلاح للسعودية. We have to get these words very clearly from him, and we haven't gotten that yet. And we are very important. I don't know, sorry, some Arab. And we are very, you know, أنا جيت الليلة على مانجو ليش؟ لأنه إحنا الجالية العرب، إحنا الجالية الوحيدة بأمريكا اللي الكل بينزل على القهاوي عشان يحضروا الديبيت. So this is where I came from.
القهاوي مليانة.
هلا هيدي الزمامير عشان الديبيت.
No, probably not. نحن
عندنا بالبلدان العربية معودين نزمر على كل شيء. بالانتخابات بنزمر، بالعراس بنزمر، بالحزن بنزمر،
بنطخ
زمر ومنطخ. عامر، أنا بدي أنطلق من هيدي النقطة اللي أنت قلتها. هل تعتقد أن النشاط التي تقومون به، وأنت واحد من القياديين في هذا النشاط اللي عم بيقول إذا بايدن ما رح يقول كلمة معينة نحن لن ننتخب بايدن، بس بنفس الوقت مش رح ننتخب ترامب، ما بتعتقدوا أنه نشاطكم وهيدي الحملة اللي عم بتقوم بها سوف تؤثر سلباً على الانتخابات، وخصوصا على فرص انه يطلع بايدن؟
انا السؤال لي مش بين انه انه الجاليه راح تنتخب لبايدن او مش راح تنتخب لبايدن. السؤال انه راح بس ننتخب لبايدن او راح نشتغل لبايدن. right?
نعم.
احنا بدنا سبب نشتغل له مش ننتخبه. but that's the difference بين التصويت والحضور والمشاركه. You know, maybe he gets 70% of the vote, but maybe that's not enough if tens of thousands of Arabs stay home. And so there has to be a reason for people to be encouraged. And so far, I don't think we have that. And we have to keep asking for that because our community, look, I believe, I've been doing this for a long time. Our community is very sophisticated. They are very demanding and we deserve to be demanding. We are strong, we are very successful, and وبنعمل نسبة كبيرة في ميشيغان.
طب خلوني بس
ميشيغان ايش كانت؟ علي بيعرف انه ب 2016 كانت ميشيغان على 10,000 votes. 10,000 votes. حي بإيست ديربورن 10,000 votes.
طيب انا خليني انا كمان اكون منصف، يعني كوني انا حضرتكم اثنيناتكم يعني تتبعون الى الحزب الديمقراطي اذا ماني غلطان.
لا انا ماني.
انت علي منك ديمقراطي؟ اوكي تمام. علي حيادي وعامل
انا يساري ديمقراطي.
انت يساري
باشتراك
راديكال. نسيتوني السؤال. انطلاقا من هيدا الموضوع، مثل ما بتعرفوا انتم الجالية العربية، يمكن نحن بنقول بشكل عام لما بنحكي بنقول الجالية العربية خلص يعني مبدئيا تلقائيا رايحين للديمقراطيين، انما لقينا ابتداء من 2016 وعند انتخاب الرئيس ترامب كرئيس والى حد الان هناك اصوات عربية كثيرة صارت عم تطلع وتقول نحن لا مش مع الديمقراط، نحن مع ترامب وسوف ننتخب ترامب وسوف ندعم ترامب. ونحن عم نطلع لايف والتعليقات كتير كبيرة عم تجي من عرب مؤيدين للرئيس الأمريكي دونالد ترامب. لماذا هناك زيادة أو ازدياد في العرب المؤيدين للرئيس دونالد ترامب؟
لأنه للأسف just want to say one thing علي sorry. لأنه للأسف في تفكير بالجالية العربية ومش بس بديربورن بأمريكا، في تفكير بالجالية العربية بشكل عام انه احنا مسحورين بالكرسي وترامب لسه ماسك الكرسي، فاحنا مسحورين بالكرسي دائما بنركع على الكرسي. This is a big problem. By the way, this is the same reason a lot of people like Biden لأنه كان vice president
نعم.
ومسحورين فيه لأنه كان vice president. وأنا وجهة نظري إنه لازم نطلب مطالب لحد ما يجي المطالب، وإذا ما أجاش المطالب then maybe we vote for him، بس مش رح نشتغله. This is the big difference.
خليني انا هون جاوبك.
تفضل استاذ علي، لانه نقطه كثير مهمه استاذ علي. ليش
خليني
هناك
جاوبك
ازدياد؟
انا خليني جاوبك بشكل صريح وواضح على الناس اللي عم يطلعوا ويقولوا نحن بدنا نصوت لترامب. وصحيح انه هذا الشيء موجود، وللاسف انه انا بقدر اقول لك انه حتى المشاركه في الانتخابات الامريكيه هلا عم تصير على اساس مذهبي وعلى اساس طائفي. لا للأسف، لأنه الانقسام العربي الموجود بين العرب وبين المسلمين عم بيخلي بعض الأصوات وكثير من الأصوات أنها تطلع وتقول أنه أنا بدي انتخب ترامب على خلفية. أول خلفية المعاداة وفرض عقوبات على إيران، على اغتيال سليماني، لأنه على اغتيال الجنرال سليماني، على موضوع فرض العقوبات على حزب الله بلبنان، على الموضوع بسوريا، على موضوع التطبيع مع البحرين ومع إسرائيل، لأنه نحن عندنا جيل كبير من المطبعين ومن المطبلين لهذا التطبيع. فهيدا الأساس عم تطلع أصوات وعم تقول إيه نحن بدنا ننتخب ترامب، للأسف على حساب التمييز العنصري. مش معناته أنه أنا عم دافع بدي ننتخب بايدن بس، ولكن على حساب الحقوق المدنية للعرب وللمسلمين بداخل الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، وعلى حساب كل المبادئ الأخلاقية اللي عندهم من التمييز. عم يطلعوا بيقولوا نحن بدنا ننتخب ترامب بس لأنه ترامب عنده أجندة خارجية متحالفة مع المملكة العربية السعودية ومتحالفة مع إسرائيل، وعم تقوم باتفاقيات التطبيع، وعم تقوم باستهداف اليمن وباستهداف العراق وإيران وسوريا ولبنان. هذا السبب الأساسي والمحرض الأساسي على هكذا كلام.
علي، بس ما بتعتقد انه بنفس الوقت هيدا هو نفس السبب اللي عم بيخلي الطرف الاخر ينتخب بايدن او ينتخب الديمقراطيين؟ لانه الطرف الاخر
أبداً.
الطرف
أبداً.
الاخر يهتم
أبداً.
كمان بالسياسه الخارجيه الامريكيه مثل
أبداً لانه الطرف الاخر منه عكس الرئيس ترامب بس، ولكن الطرف الاخر عاده يتبع المؤسسات. يعني انا بقدر اقول لك يمكن لو تكون هيلاري كلينتون بالحكم يمكن ما قامت بعمليه المغامره الكبيره وقامت باغتيال سليماني اللي كادت ان تفجر حربا في المنطقه. يعني انا عم اقول لك انه الحزب الديمقراطي اصلا تاريخيا هو من الداعمين لاسرائيل. أنا بالعكس أنت ما فيك تأخذ الميل الثاني أبدا، أنت عم تأخذ على
الداعمين بس لم يقوموا بنقل السفارة الأمريكية من
ولو كان
من تل أبيب إلى القدس. الداعمين، ولكن خليني فوتك عامر بالمناقشة لأنه المناقشة مهمة. بعتقد هذا
موضوع النقل إلى القدس ما له علاقة، لأنه موضوع النقل ما بتصور هذه الأصوات اللي عم تدعي.
ما عطوا الديمقراط ما عطوش الجولان لإسرائيل.
لا هون خليني أوضح لك.
ما إسرائيل أخذت الجولان من زمان،
بس قصدي لم تعترف فيها رسميا. ترامب اعترف بها رسميا.
خليني أوضح النقطة هون، خليني لكون أنا عادل ومنصف في هذا الموضوع. الأصوات اللي عم تطلع هلأ من العرب وعم تطالب إنه ننتخب ترامب هي ضد نقل السفارة الأمريكية إلى القدس وضد ضم الجولان. ما عم بحكي لا هيدي منا حافز لها. أنا قلت لك الحافز هو مذهبي عملك حتى بالرغم، يعني شوف انه هون هذه بتعزز المذهبيه بالرغم من اللي عمله ترامب بالجولان وبموضوع القدس. بالرغم من هذا كله لانه عنده سياسه متشدده اتجاه ايران وعم يدعم الحرب على اليمن وضد سوريا وعم يفرض عقوبات وعم يعمل عمليات التطبيع مع الانظمه العربيه. بالرغم من هذا كله بدهم ينتخبوه لاجل هذه الامور. انا عم لك عن نعره مذهبيه طائفيه بالداعمين لترامب انه عم بيقوموا بهذا الموضوع. بس
طب علي، هل بامكانك انه تعمم انت انه من يدعم ترامب هو مذهبي؟
بالاغلبيه هذه الاصوات اللي عم تقول، يعني انا في مثل بيقول ما بدي اقوله، يعني بتعرفوا كملته مكيب الطهاره بس ما بدي كفيه. يعني هن عم بيقولوا نحن بدنا ننتخب ترامب ثأرا، بدنا ننتخب ترامب انه انتقاما، بدنا ننتخب ترامب لانه هو مع هيدي السياسه الخارجيه المعينه. لانه انا بقول لك انه كل العرب وكل المسلمين اللي عم ينتخبوا ترامب على اي اساس داخلي عم ينتخبوه؟ شو هو المعيار؟ انه حدا عم بيميز ضدك وحدا عم يعتبرك وعم بيحط قيود ويمنعك من السفر وعم بيحط عليك قوانين للهجره وعم بيميز بحقك وانت عم تروح تنتخبه على اي اساس؟ على اي اساس عم تنتخبوا؟ ما في اساس داخلي، ما في اساس داخلي كعرب، نحن كعرب انه نقدر نروح نتوجه وننتخب ترامب، انه نقدر هلا مثلا ممكن تلاقي رجل اعمال او تلاقي مؤسسات معينه لها مصالح مثلا مع الحزب الجمهوري ومع ممكن تلاقيها، بس انت عم تلاقيها على مستوى افراد وبشكل كبير عم يطلعوا وينادوا انه هن بدهم يدعموا ترامب. هيدا الموضوع بيعكس نكد وبيعكس نكايه انه نحن بدنا ننتخب ترامب.
عامر بدي رايك بهذا الموضوع، موضوع حساس يعني. اكيد نحن نحاول بقدر الامكان ان نكون موضوعيين في هذا الموضوع، واكيد نحن اكيد بدنا نتبنى اراء ضيوفنا صراحه. كل ضيف له كل الحريه بانه يقول الراي اللي بده اياه. اكيد كمحطه اعلاميه
يعني رايي كوبي رايت،
رايك كوبي رايت لك يا علي.
كوبي رايت.
تفضل استاذ عامر.
I think انه كمان I think I agree with علي basically. I think انه هدول اللي عم ينتخبوا لترامب من ناحيه مذهبيه هن الاقليه بالجاليه. I think انه الاغلبيه بالجاليه رح ينتخبوا لبايدن. بس المشكله بيجي انه كمان في تفكير بالجاليه انه بين يعني عم بنتخبوا او عم بفكروا بين زي we say in English الشيطان اللي بنعرفه والشيطان اللي بنعرفه. right? ترامب الشيطان اللي بنعرفه وقدامنا وبنعرف كيف نتعامل معاه. we have a big problem with Biden خصوصا بالقضية الفلسطينية. صحيح. انه he is better at protecting Israel than Trump is. You know, Trump بيخلي قضية فلسطين والدعم لإسرائيل يكون إشي بين الديمقراطس والريببليكانز. بايدن إذا أجا راح يجي وراح يتحد الديمقراطس والريببليكانز بالدعم لإسرائيل. This is a big problem for us as Palestinians and as Arabs. And the other thing is, again, why are some people considering voting for Trump? Because Biden is not giving us a reason. خصوصا بقضية فلسطين. ليش طلعنا بحضور أكتر بالبرايمريز لبرني ساندرز، وليش طلعنا ب85% لبرني ساندرز ضد جو بايدن بالبرايمريز؟ فلسطين. That's it. I know our community. وليش بنشارك بالانتخابات أكتر؟ فلسطين. And Bernie, by the way, Bernie ما كانش 100% بقضية فلسطين، بس غير الحديث وفوت عرب فلسطينيين زي أنا وزي ليندا صرصور بالحملة وورجانا للعالم. This is a big thing for us. And so هو بايدن إيش عم بوعدنا فيه؟ عم بوعدنا بالحالي بأيام أوباما بدون القدس، لأنه هو قال إنه راح يخلي السفارة بالقدس، ما قالش إنه بده يرجع السفارة على تل أبيب. So هو عم بوعدنا بالظروف اللي كانت بالنسبة لقضية فلسطين لأيام أوباما بدون القدس. هذا الإشي بكفي لنا؟ أكيد لا. فأكيد لازم نطالب أكتر and force them to say. That's why I say I don't think it's a good idea to endorse this early.
هل يمكن حصر السبب وراء دعم الجالية العربية لمرشح ما يعني فقط بسبب قضية محددة كقضية القدس أو قضية فلسطين؟ هل ممكن يعني حصر الجالية العربية ورأي الجالية العربية ككل في أمريكا نحن عم نحكي؟ لأنه كمان في أصوات طلعت عامر لك أنت قالوا أنه عامر زهر لأنه هو فلسطيني بس عم يذكر فلسطين ومعتبر انه القضيه الوحيده للجاليه العربيه هي القضيه الفلسطينيه. وانا انقل راي الشرع وما راينا وما شاهدنا على وسائل التواصل الاجتماعي وما قرانا عامر.
فلسطين هي قضيه العرب كلهم بتصور.
لا علي انا بدي اسالك هيدا بس كمان
لعامر كونه هو انا عارف سؤال مسالم. انا بس عم بيقولوا
للعرب كونه عامر فلسطيني، فمن كيف ناشط سياسي ومحامي وفلسطيني
وانا فلسطيني.
كلنا فلسطينية، بس تجي القصة للموضوع الوطني كلنا فلسطين. بس بقصدي بالموضوع السياسي يتهمونك عامر لأنك أنت فلسطيني عم بتخلي محور الحديث ومحور القضية هي بس فلسطين وليس شيء تاني.
Let me make 2 points.
فضل.
أولا فيش إشي عيب إنه الواحد ينتخب على قضية فلسطين، فيش إشي عيب فيه الإشي.
نعم.
أولا. ثانيا كل جالية إلها أمورها، إلها الأمور اللي خصوصا إلها. يعني for instance, for black people maybe it's racial relations and the criminal justice system.
نعم.
For Latinos maybe it's immigration. For us it's foreign policy and mostly Palestine, because Palestine has always been in the middle of American politics.
نعم.
And so there's nothing wrong. By the way, وتاني نقطة وهي يمكن هي أهم نقطة، إنه أنا بآمن إنه قوة أي جالية، القوة السياسية لأي جالية إنه يكون عندها أمر سياسي أساسي، إنه we say to people, you have to be with us on this issue or we're not going to vote for you. That's how the Jewish community is very strong. The Jewish community says, it's not just money like people say. The Jewish community says to everybody, you stand with us on Israel, then we talk to you about other issues. So it's okay for us, كعرب, to say, you have to give us some things on Palestine, then we talk to you about other issues. Otherwise, if we stay silent about Palestine, then everyone else will stay silent about Palestine. فيش عيب بالإشي.
عامر، نقطة بدي روح من اللي قاله الأستاذ علي منصور فيما يتعلق بالأشخاص اللي هن من الجالية العربية المؤيدين لترامب. عم بيقول في الأغلبية خلفية مذهبية وحقد لبعض الدول. ما تعليقك على هذا الموضوع؟
في منه طبعا، في منه يعني ما نقدرش ننكر انه في منه، طبعا في منه، بس هذا الاشي يعني اشي عام، اشي really is over a lot of it. ممكن في ديربورن، اوكي ممكن في ديربورن، بس بالجالية العربية بشكل عام بأمريكا I don't think so. بس طبعا هذا الاشي موجود، يعني ما نقدرش ننكر انه هذا الاشي موجود طبعا، وخصوصا بديربورن.
هل خليني انطلق من هون كمان لك استاذ علي ولك استاذ عامر، هل من المعيب لعربي ان يدعم ترامب؟ هل عيب؟ استاذ علي،
هلا لك بالسياسه انه اذا بدك انت تفوت بالعمل السياسي بالنهايه ما في شيء معيب، بس ولكن انك انت تنتخب ترامب مثل ما ذكرت انا، انه شو الاساس الاخلاقي وشو الاساس اللي انت بدك تنتخب عليه ترامب. عنده اجنده تمييزيه عنصريه بحق العرب وبحق السود وبحق الاقليات، يعني وبحق كل شيء. عنده اصلا منه سوي، يعني حتى انه بيطرحوا للامور، يعني اكبر دليل المناظره اللي كنا عم نسمعها هلا والحكي اللي السابق اللي قاله كله، بدءا من اتفاقيات المناخ لموضوع الاستخفاف بكورونا فيروس، وهو عارف هالشيء وقاله بالتسجيل انه هذا مرض خطير، وطلع عند يقول انه هذا شيء منه مثل الانفلونزا وبنقضي عليه. فيعني الاستخفاف بكل هذه المواضيع، يعني حتى كمان على المستوى، تعال نحكي على مستوى الفساد. يعني يا اخي تعال نحكي على مستوى الفساد. هذه نيويورك تايمز مش من هلا، من 2018 اصدرت تقرير كامل بتحكي فيه عن نقل الإرث من والده لدونالد ترامب إلى دونالد ترامب وأولاده، وكيف تهربوا من الضرائب وكيف كانوا عاملين حيل من شان نقلوا مئات ملايين الدولارات. نحن عم نحكي على أكبر فساد بتاريخ أمريكا يمارسها رئيس، يعني مارسها رئيس. كلنا بنعرف شو كان عامل ترامب وكيف اجى على منصب الرئاسة. فبتصور انه اصلا مأزق اخلاقي كتير كبير للديمقراطية الامريكية انه يجي دونالد ترامب هو رئيس للجمهورية. هون بدي ارجع ارجع لموضوع اللي حكيته عن القضية الفلسطينية. يعني القضية الفلسطينية كمان من المعيب. ما هو الأصوات اللي قلت عنهم والأسئلة اللي وجهوها لعامر زار أنه اتهموه بأنه هو فلسطيني وعم يحصر الوجهة الانتخابية على حسب فلسطين. شو العيب بهيك؟ بعدين هذا اللي عم يسأل هذا السؤال أنا بدي أقول له هو ما بيستحي يسأل هيك سؤال، انه شو الغلط بهيك موضوع؟ ما هذا حقنا الطبيعي. ما بعدنا عم نحكي عن ايباك الاسرائيليه انه بتحدد المعيار حسب الدعم لاسرائيل، فنحن اذا حددنا المعيار حسب الدعم لفلسطين شو المشكله؟ شو المشكله بهذا الموضوع؟ يعني هذا اصلا الاشخاص اللي طرحوا هذا الطرح عم ينطلقوا من مساله جدا غلط. بعدين موضوع السياسه الخارجيه مترابط كله ببعضه، يعني مترابط من فلسطين، مترابط مع لبنان، مع العقوبات اللي عم تفرض على لبنان للأسف بحجة فرض عقوبات على حزب الله. عم يفرضوا عقوبات على لبنان كله، عقوبات على سوريا، عقوبات على إيران، عقوبات تفجير تهديد الأمن بمنطقة الخليج ومنطقة الشرق الأوسط، دعم الحرب على اليمن. أخلاقيا يا أخي خلينا نحكي بالموضوع الأخلاقي. تحت أي مبرر الولايات المتحدة وإدارة الرئيس ترامب عم تدعم الحرب على اليمن وعم قتلت لحد هلا أن قتل مئات الآلاف من المدنيين، وفي مجاعة صارت باليمن لحد هلا. انه شو المعيار الاخلاقي؟ انا بدي احكي بموضوع، انا بقول شغله، بايدن منه هو الرئيس المثالي، بس انا عندي معركه. انا مني من الحزب الديمقراطي، يعني عمليا انا مراقب وبتابع، ومني يعني داخل هذه المؤسسات الحزبيه بشكل عام يعني. بس نعم. ولكن انا عندي مساله كتير مهمه، وهي اسقاط الرئيس ترامب. هلا بعرف انه بايدن منه الخيار الامثل ومنه الخيار الأفضل وما حيكون معي. بس ولكن أنا إذا بقدر سقط ترامب بميشيغان وبالتالي بيخسر ترامب الانتخابات، أنا بتصور نحن كعرب كلهم بيعرفوا قيمتنا بميشيغان، وبتصور انه العمل السياسي هو عمل تراكمي والطويل قدامنا، الطريق قدامنا كتير طويل من اجل انه نوصل لمرحله يصير في عندنا قوه كتير كبيره ونقدر نحدد، يعني نقدر نشتغل ضمن ميشيغان لنقدر يعني نعمل بيضة الأبان والقوة المرجحة بقلب ميشيغان المتأرجحة. يعني لك نحن شو من نحن وضع استراتيجي كتير قوي وضعنا نحن كعرب. ميشيغان من الولايات المتأرجحة ونحن العرب القوة المرجحة بقلب ميشيغان. نحن من هون بناخد قوتنا. نحن إذا منسقط ترامب هلأ ويثبت إنه نحن العرب سقطنا ترامب، فنحن حناخد كتير قوة بالمستقبل بالانتخابات الجاية. وبتصور يمكن هالمرة الرئيس أو المرشح الديمقراطي ما اجى طلب دعمنا، بس مرة تانية حيطلب دعمنا وحنفرض شروطنا. هذا تصوري أنا. معركتي أنا هي إسقاط الرئيس ترامب.
علي أشرت لنقطة أنت إنه ما طلب دعمكم. هلا أنا بشوي قلتوا لي أنتوا أيبك ما بتعطي دعم لحدا إلا إذا أعطاها.
أنا طبعا أنا حسب الأصول، لا أنا قلت لك إنه حسب الأصول اللي بعرفه إنه لازم المرشح هو يقدم طلب منشان تدعمه. وأحلت السؤال، أحلت الإجابة لأستاذ عامر، وعامر قال إنه نحن دعمنا بهالطريقة هيدي. فأنا عامل لك هذا واقع مؤسف جدا.
نعم.
إنه نحن بعدنا كعرب لحد هلأ ما عم يبعثوا لنا ويطلبوا دعمنا.
علي
يعني كمان هذا وضع مؤسف جدا.
علي شكله انت اصلا انت وعم تحكي طلع معك عنوان لمقاله قادمه شكلك، لانه العرب. عامر انا بدي انطلق من اللي قاله علي، وفيك تعلق على اللي قاله اكيد لانه بدنا ننطلق منه. هل يا ترى فقط العرب في ولايه ميشيغان سوف يكونون بيضة القبان، وهل يا ترى نحن بيضة القبان في ميشيغان، ولا في ولايات اخرى كمان هناك ثقل عربي مثل كاليفورنيا ونيو جيرسي ونيويورك؟ اذا فيك تعلق على هذا الموضوع.
عفوا، كاليفورنيا منا متأرجحة.
قصدي كتقل كتصويت. نحن عنا فلوريدا متأرجحة.
Yeah, Florida we have a big community, and Florida is متأرجحة is يعني what we call swing state, right?
Swing state.
So Florida also is we have a big community in Florida. We have big communities in Pennsylvania, and we have by the way, there's a large Arab community in Arizona. So it's not just Michigan, but probably obviously Michigan
أنا عشان
is the
في
strongest
كثير عالم من كل الولايات بيحضرونا، أنا بدي ركز إنه ليس التركيز فقط على ولاية ميشيغان إنما على أمريكا وكل الولايات في أمريكا، لأنه لدينا متابعين من كل أمريكا.
لا، في جالية عربية كبيرة وقوية في فلوريدا، في جالية عربية كبيرة أو قوية مش هالقد كبيرة في بنسلفانيا، وفي جالية عربية في Ohio probably is not a swing state this time، بس في جالية عربية بمينيسوتا بنعرف إنه في جالية صومالية كبيرة. So this is all of these places we have a thing. And look, again, let me be clear. I don't view, I wrote this a long time ago. The choice that we have is what's making it difficult. If this was Bernie Sanders, we would not be having a discussion right now. But the discussion is because this is Joe Biden. And what we know is going to happen, it didn't happen tonight, but what we know is going to happen is they're going to get on a stage and they're going to compete over who loves Israel more. And they're going to get on a stage and Joe Biden is going to say that إنه اتفاقات التطبيع بين البحرين والإمارات وإسرائيل and maybe there's going to be Saudi by that time. راح يحتفل بالإشي Biden. So that's why I think, I'm a member of AIPAC Al-Arabiya, and I'm a very proud member, and we endorse Trump. Biden, we probably should have waited. I think it would have been better if we waited to really see, because when Biden does these things, because what happens when you endorse him too early, بتعطيه الضوء الأخضر إنه يحكي مش ضدنا بس مع الكيان الصهيوني, because خلاص he has our endorsement. So we should have waited and held out our endorsement so that he was not able to do these things as much. I think it was a mistake to do it this early, and we haven't done it this early before. وليش؟ لأنه الكل خايف من ترامب. أنا مش خايف من ترامب بشكل عام everybody always says إنه Trump, he is existential threat and he threatens the American. Trump is a rich white guy. Every president has been a rich white guy. It's like Trump is not strange in the way our political system works. It's always favored rich white guys. And so we have to be very strategic about how we do this and understand. I don't believe that getting rid of Trump should be the number one thing. I think getting things for our community should be the number one thing. Yes, Trump is dangerous, he's a bad president, he's a racist, all of these things. But the question for me is, إنه إذا بايدن إذا بفوز بايدن راح يصير شغلنا أسهل. مثلا راح يصير شغلنا إنه نبني تضامن مع الجاليات الأخرى بالنسبة لقضية فلسطين، راح يصير أسهل تحت بايدن because إحنا عمرنا تضامن كبير مع الجاليات الأخرى تحت ترامب. So is it going to be harder with Biden لأنه صار بايدن قاعد بالوايت هاوس وصارت الجاليات الأخرى صارت اسم مع الوايت هاوس، وإحنا مش مع الوايت هاوس لأنه الوايت هاوس راح يكون مع إسرائيل. So maybe if Biden wins and we don't make sure he says the things we want him to say before he wins, maybe when he wins we get stuck on the outside, and this is very scary to me too.
اوكي نحن تقريبا وصلنا لنهايه الحلقه معكم استاذ عامر واستاذ
This was as
علي.
long as the debate. I mean, this was longer than the debate maybe with me and Ali.
We stayed an hour with you guys. The debate was 90 minutes. We're good. Despite نحن Arab, we like to talk, especially when it comes to politics.
No, it's very, very good.
You know when let's say عامر you're a comedian too. بتعرف انت لما واحد بيكون بده يتعرف على وحده بس بده يتعرف عليها وبيطلع هو وياها بصير يحكوا سياسي، خصوصا اذا فلسطينيه. اذا انتم اذا وحده انتم بفلسطين بيتعرفوا على بعض، اذا هو بالمقاومه هي بالمقاومه بيصيروا يحبوا بعض اكثر.
بتعرف شو الفلسطيني بغني لصاحبته على الفالنتاينز داي؟
تفضل عامر، خلينا هيك نرفه بالاخير.
على عهدي على ديني على الفالنتاينز داي. احنا هيك الرومانسيه الوطنيه حبيبي.
عامر اكيد بعد في مثل ما ذكرنا 35 يوم الى حين الانتخابات العامة في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية والانتخابات الرئاسية. أكيد رح نتحدث عن هذا الموضوع، لدينا الكثير كثير صراحة من الحديث. إن شاء الله نرجع نعمل معكم لقاء، لأن بدي أتحدث معك عامر عن انتقادك لأمجيج وشو الموضوع شو عم بيصير. نتحدث عن مواضيع تانية خاصة بالجاليات العربية مش موجودة فقط بميشيغان بس بأمريكا كلها بشكل عام. ليه ما في مؤسسات سياسية عربية غير ايباك يمكن موجودة في ولاية ميشيغان وعملها يختصر في ولاية ميشيغان وفي منطقة وين كاوني إذا ما أنا غلطانين يعني بشكل ما. ليش ما في مؤسسات سياسية عربية في ولايات أخرى كمان تقوم بنفس هذا العمل؟ بعطيكم كلمة أخيرة لك أستاذ عامر زهر وبنهي مع علي منصور. تفضل أستاذ عامر.
Look, my last thing is that I want people to keep paying attention. Make sure you keep very, very glued to everything that's happening. يعني لسه في قدامنا زي ما حكى حسين، لسه في قدامنا 35 يوم، لسه في قدامنا كمان مناظرتين بين بايدن وترامب، وراح يحكوا بالسياسة الخارجية اللي هذا الاشي بهمنا كثير كجالية عربية. So we have to make sure that we stay listening and we make sure احنا نضلنا حتى ولو ايباك العربية او اي منظمة عربية بتدعم حدا، لازم نضل نطلب مطالب من المرشحين وخصوصا من جو بايدن لاخر يوم عشان نورجي قوتنا عشان نمثل الجالية العربية and so we can show انه اصواتنا مش رخيصة وما بتجيش ببلاش. And the last thing I'll say is to Ali Mansour and to Hussein Hashim, thank you for all the things you do for our community. Really, I love you both. I'm very proud of you both, and I couldn't be prouder to be with two of you tonight.
Thank you عامر. استاذ علي كلمة لك.
يعني مثل ما قلت انت نحن ضيفين يعني ما عم نختلف بشيء، فما في شيء هيك وعادة المقابلات بتاخذ حيويتها من النقاش اللي بيكون حاد يعني واختلاف وجهات النظر. فانا يعني
حبينا نطريها اليوم ان شاء الله قريبا رح ندميكم على الهواء بس حبينا. بس في اختلاف يعني. استاذ علي انت مؤيد لترامب امين لبايدن وسوف تصوت لبايدن. عامر زهر
انا قلت لك ماني مؤيد لبايدن
من حسب حديثك مؤيد لبايدن.
لا انا قلت لك معركتي الاساسيه يعني انا بعتبر انه اسقاط الرئيس ترامب هو شغله كتير اساسيه وكتير مهمه، وقلت لك انه بايدن منه هو الرئيس الامثل ومنه الخيار الامثل. بس انا كعربي موجود في الولايات المتحده شو خياراتي محدوده جدا مثل ما بقولوا، وعلينا بالصبر الاستراتيجي يعني مراكمه القوه والعمل على بيئتنا وعلى مجتمعنا، انه نحن اكثر شيء نقدر نتوحد ونقدر نجتمع تحت يعني منظمات وجمعيات أهلية، ونعمل إطار سياسي لنا ونمد هيدا الإطار لكل أمريكا، ويصير عندنا مثل ما بقولوا كلمة السر، وساعتها من هون بناخذ قوتنا. بصير لما بده يجي حدا يحكي معنا، أي مرشح بيحكي معنا كعرب على مستوى الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية كلها، على مستوى الولايات اللي فيها العربي، يعني هيك نحن بنكسب قيمتنا. فأنا هون عمول إنه نحن لما بنسقط الرئيس ترامب بميشيغان، وبيعرف الرئيس ترامب وبيعرف الحزب الجمهوري انه ميشيغان سقطت بسبب الصوت العربي، وبيعرف مثلا جو بايدن انه ربح بسبب الصوت العربي، ممكن هيدي تكون يعني فاتحه طريق لنا. نحن قمنا باداء كثير كبير بديربون تحديدا وبميشيغان، كان عندنا بمراحل كثيره كان عندنا كثافه تصويت عاليه، وعندنا اصوات نحن لا يستهان بها. فنحن كل اللي علينا انه نستغل هيدي الاصوات ونعرف نشتغل بشكل منظم وبشكل محدد، ونبعد خلافاتنا، الاختلافات الطائفية والمذهبية ولا خلافات حتى الشخصية والعائلية. نحن بمجتمع أشبه بمجتمع قروي، وكل العالم بتعرف بعضها، وللأسف بيصير في مصالح متضاربة وبعض الخلافات. نحن مفروض مننا نترفع عن كل هيدي الامور، ونعمل كلنا كمجموعه وحده، ونصب بلوك واحد بطريقه معينه، بعدين بنكسب قوتنا. هيدي وجهه نظري. هلا في اخذ موقف تاني مثلا، حتى ما اكون مع حدا، نقعد ببيتي وما صوت وقول انا ما بدي اتعاطى بالشأن العام. للاسف اذا كل العالم عملوا هيك نحن بنخسر. نحن حتى بالمجالات الداخليه ما بفقدها بالبلديه، وبفقدها بالمجلس التعليمي، وبفقدها على مستوى المقاطعه، وبفقدها بميشيغان على مستوى السيناتورز والنواب، بفقدها بكل هذه الامور. فلا، انا بدي احافظ على قوتي، وخليني اقول انه انا كعربي نحن عندنا انجازات كثير مهمه على مستوى الولايه. عندنا انجازات كثير مهمه جبناها بقوتنا بصناديق الاقتراع، مش بقوتنا
نعم.
او بقوتنا بصناديق الاقتراع قدرنا انه نحظى بالاحترام. عندنا نحن هلا مثلا نواب وعندنا سيناتورز بندعمهم، ونحن يمكن عم نكون الجهه اللي عم تربحهم. فنحن بدنا نحافظ على هذه القوه، ومحافظه على هذه القوه بدك تتعامل بايجابيه، ولا بدك تتعامل ببراغماتيه، بكلمه افضل يعني بدك تكون براغماتي بهذا الموضوع.
طيب
يعني
انا بدي
حسين can I just say one 30 second عشان ما حدا يفهم علي غلط، انه بشجع كل الجالية العربية انه ينتخبوا يصوتوا. I want to be clear. I think everybody should vote. The question, and there's still time to register to vote. You can register until the same day. The question is not just voting, but working and organizing and supporting and getting something from a candidate in return. But عشان ما حدا يفهمنيش غلط. vote.
طيب عامر، أنا بتشكرك أستاذ عامر زهر المحامي والكوميدي والناشط السياسي، والأستاذ علي منصور الصحفي في جريدة صدى الوطن الأمريكية العربية موجودة في مدينة ديربون. نتشكركم على وجودكم معنا في هذه الحلقة على السريع، حلقة غير محضر لها صراحة. أكيد مثل ما بيعرفوا متابعينا ومشاهدينا على شو الأخبار ويب تي في قناة العرب في أمريكا، أننا في تلك القناة نحن حياديين ونعطيكم المعلومات، وأنتم كمشاهدين وكمتابعين نحترم آرائكم ونحترم اختلاف الآراء، ولا نتبنى أي رأي صراحة. نحن نعطي المعلومات، أنتم كمتلقيين لهذه المعلومات أو بتقبلوها أو بترفضوها، وكل واحد عنده رأيه في هذا الموضوع. إن شاء الله في المناظرات القادمة الرئاسية وفي الحلقات المقبلة نحن رح يكون عندنا حلقات شو صار لي بآخر الحلقة، حلقات كتير قريبا إن شاء الله نتحدث عن موضوع الانتخابات الأمريكية، ورح نتأكد أنه يكون في موجود أشخاص من الجاليات العربية مؤيدين للرئيس ترامب، وأشخاص مؤيدين للرئيس بايدن، ومحايدين كمان، لأنه هناك نسبة كبيرة من المحايدين اللي كمان عم بيقولوا نحن ما بدنا ننتخب أصلا. فإن شاء الله نحن سوف نتأكد وسوف نوعدكم أنه بيكون في معنا تنوع. واكيد الاستاذ علي والاستاذ عامر هم من اهل البيت، وعطول ضيوف وليسوا بضيوف مثل ما قلنا من اهل البيت، عطول موجودين معنا، ونسمن كثير ارائهم وخبرتهم في هذا المجال وعملهم في المجال الاجتماعي والمجال السياسي في امريكا على مدى العقود الماضيه. انا بنهايه الحلقه بتشكرك استاذ عامر، بتشكرك استاذ علي على وجودكم معنا، بتشكر كل اللي عم بيكونوا يتابعونا، اللي اتفقوا مع عامر وعلي على اللي قالوه، واللي عارضوا عامر وعلي على اللي قالوه. ونحن عرضنا كل الكومنتس تقريبا، كنا عم نفرجيها على الشاشه على شريط التعليقات. ان شاء الله بيكون لنا لقاءات قادمه نحن وياكم حصريا على شو الأخبار ويب تي في قناة العرب في أمريكا. إلى أن نلقاكم في حلقات مقبلة. كان معكم حسين هاشم، تصبحون على ألف خير و God bless the USA. مظبوط؟